Chapter 424. Li Xiaobing spoke unhurriedly. She wanted to exert some pressure on the two of them so that she could take the initiative in the negotiation. After all, in Li Xiaobing's eyes, Wu Ji and Wang Yu were just two otakus who barely managed to deal with her with their luck. Little did she know that Wang Yu was simple-minded. Any kind of pressure couldn't affect him. Wu Ji was even more impressive. He was in the Chinese Academy of Sciences and had seen the country's leaders. How could he be scared by a mere studio boss? Therefore, the two of them were quite calm when they heard Li Xiaobing's words. Wu Ji replied casually, "Oh, I don't want to know who you are. You just need to know that we are here to talk about compensation." Li Xiaobing's expression changed slightly. She smiled and said, "Actually, I really didn't expect you to win." Wu Ji said, "I also didn't expect that I would be tricked by you." Li Xiaobing smiled and looked at Wang Yu. Then she said slowly, "Actually, it doesn't matter to me whether you win or not this time because I just want to sit down and talk with you." A smart person could hide a hidden meaning in a few simple words. Li Xiaobing opened the door to show her power first. Wang Yu and Wu Ji were both calm. Later, Li Xiaobing flattered Wu Ji and said, "I'm a wily old fox. You are still too young." Wu Ji calmly gave her a taste of her own medicine. "No matter how old you are, you still fall into my hands." After 2 rounds, Li Xiaobing suddenly felt that the guy in front of her was more difficult to deal with than she had imagined. Only then did she calm down and start to talk business. "Oh? What do we have to talk about?" Wu Ji raised his eyebrows and asked. Wu Ji liked smart people, but he didn't like businessmen like Li Xiaobing who put profit first in everything. "President Wu Ji is a sensible person, so I won't beat around the bush. Do you think it's interesting for us to continue like this in the current pharmaceutical market?" Since both of them were well aware of the situation, Li Xiaobing didn't need to pretend to be ignorant. Wu Ji sneered, "I'm just a gamer, not a businessman. As long as I'm having fun, it's fine. Whether it's interesting or not, it has nothing to do with us." Li Xiaobing smiled and said, "There's no need for us to fight over this. I have a suggestion that satisfies both sides. I wonder if President Wu Ji is interested." "Tell me. How about we work together? The pharmaceutical market is a big cake. It can't be swallowed by just a few people. Only if we cooperate, what do you think?" Li Xiaobing said temptingly. "Nothing much." Wu Ji shook his head and said, "I'm here to talk about the contract. I don't want more. I'll take the contract for 100,000 gold coins. I don't want to talk about anything else, and I'm not interested in it." The current value of 100,000 gold coins was equivalent to 10,000 gold coins before the official operation. This was the current standard value of a guild's base. "President Wu Ji, 100,000 gold coins is nothing to me. You have to know that if we cooperate, the profit we can get is more than 100,000 gold coins." Li Xiaobing was right. The pharmaceutical machine market was so big, and Xiaobing's studio was good at monopolizing. When the time came, not to mention advanced potions, even intermediate potions could be sold at sky-high prices. "No." Wu Ji shook his head. Li Xiaobing was puzzled. Why? From the various information collected by Xiaobing's studio, the people in Xuanzhen were people who wouldn't get up early if there were no benefit. The benefits in front of him were so rich, and this person refused without even thinking about it. Did he think that the benefits were not enough? Wu Ji said, "There's no reason. I just don't like you as a person." A gentleman loved money, and he took it in the right way. Wu Ji could play along with Xiaobing's studio. However, Xiaobing's studio launched a base war and wanted to whitewash Li Shui and the others. This kind of behavior made Wu Ji feel disgusted with Li Xiaobing. A person who could even do this kind of thing, it would be good if he didn't cheat his friends. How much benefits could he expect? Wu Ji wouldn't even believe the punctuation marks that Li Xiaobing drew now. "You." Li Xiaobing was speechless by Wu Ji. "I just don't like you as a person." Such a far-fetched reason was a bit inexplicable in the ears of Li Xiaobing, who believed in the saying, "There are no eternal friends, only eternal interests." Is this something a smart person should do? Wu Ji ignored Li Xiaobing's surprise, took out the contract and asked, "Do you have anything else? If not, pay the money, and I will return the contract to you immediately." Li Xiaobing glanced at the contract and didn't intend to pay. Instead, she said coldly, "I think you will cooperate with us." When she said this, Li Xiaobing's face had a hint of ruthlessness. "Why?" Wu Ji asked. Li Xiaobing smiled and said, "Didn't you feel that when you were guarding the encampment, you were missing one person? Missing one person?" Wu Ji and Wang Yu looked at each other and began to recall the battle just now. Molly and the other two were there, Li Shui was sent to the safe zone, and only Mu Zixian didn't appear. Mu Zixian. Wu Ji immediately broke out in a cold sweat. Wang Yu also realized this and quickly sent a message to Mu Zixian, "Wife, where are you?" Mu Zixian quickly replied, "There is a workshop in Wind City that wants to clear out their inventory. I am looking at the materials in their guild warehouse." As expected. As a housewife, Mu Zixian especially liked things like clearance discounts. Li Xiaobing used such a despicable method to trick her away. Now, Mu Zixian still didn't know that she had been kidnapped. Wang Yu was startled at first. When he thought of this, an evil fire rushed to his head. This is a game. What's the point of kidnapping her? Wu Ji frowned and asked Li Xiaobing. Li Xiaobing saw their expressions and knew that she had hit the nail on the head, so she said proudly, "That woman is your main sales channel, right? A lot of materials and inventory should also be under her name. Of course, I don't really expect to kidnap her in real life, but without her, your losses will definitely be no less than if your encampment was breached." Li Xiaobing was right. Other than the money that Li Xiaobing had cheated away, Wang Yu and his wife's money was all in the shop. This kind of real estate transaction needed to be done in person. Now that Li Xiaobing had done this, it was basically equivalent to sealing Mu Zixian's account. "How about it? Boss Wu Ji, can we cooperate this time?" Li Xiaobing still had a smile on her face, but there was a hint of threat in her words. Wu Ji lowered his head and didn't say anything. Wang Yu's hair was already standing on end. Li Xiaobing said again, "I can give you time to consider, but not much." Chapter 425. Li Xiaobing heard this and smiled. No, Wu Ji leader, you don't understand the current situation. Do you think that with Blood Alliance behind you, you can do whatever you want? The market is a matter between studios. If Blood Alliance wants to interfere, they have to think twice. Li Xiaobing heard Wu Ji say this and thought that Wu Ji was threatening him. Blood Alliance had always been high profile and didn't hide their help this time. Naturally, Li Xiaobing knew that they had lost to Blood Alliance this time. However, studios were the second biggest power in the gaming circle apart from the large esports clubs. They controlled the resources and market in the game. Although their connections couldn't compare to the big guilds, they were still quite important. If they worked together, even Blood Alliance wouldn't dare to offend them. Humph! Seeing Li Xiaobing being so arrogant, Wu Ji was speechless. He snorted coldly and didn't want to waste any more time with him. However, Li Xiaobing still said recklessly, "He, Boss Wu Ji, you don't have much time left. You must have a close relationship with that woman since you gave such an important channel to her. I have a good temper, but my subordinates don't have good tempers. That girl is pretty, shut up." Before Li Xiaobing could finish, Wang Yu roared and stood up. Wang Yu's shout shocked everyone at the table, especially Wu Ji. He had known Wang Yu for so long and knew that although this guy was a warrior, he had a good upbringing and rarely got angry. Li Xiaobing had really hit his bottom line this time. After all, although there weren't many moral restraints in the game, and murder was a common occurrence, and kidnapping wasn't considered a heinous crime, no man would want his wife to be used as a bargaining chip. Moreover, Li Xiaobing's last sentence was obviously asking for death. If it was just a kidnapping, As long as Li Xiaobing was willing to let go, Wang Yu would at most kill him a few times to vent his anger. However, Li Xiaobing actually allowed his subordinates to violate Mu Zixian. This caused the usually good-tempered Wang Yu to completely explode. This bastard in front of him must not be let off. The Laihu warlord, Shifu, and the others all knew how powerful Wang Yu was. When they saw Wang Yu stand up, they were shocked. They all stood up, took a step back, and drew their weapons. Oh? And this is? Li Xiaobing only knew that the president of Chuanjin was Wu Ji. She couldn't match the others at all. She felt that she had more people on her side, so she was not afraid. Her expression was still calm, but she didn't notice that her subordinates had been scared by Wang Yu and had goosebumps. Wu Ji said, "This is the lady's husband. In other words, you kidnapped his wife." Fuck! When the Laihu warlord and sudden change of winds and clouds heard this, they were so scared that they almost dropped the weapons in their hands. This guy stabbed people's eyes when he attacked. He was vicious and ruthless. If he was angry, even if everyone attacked together, they would not be a match for him. How could their boss kidnap his wife? Oh. Li Xiaobing nodded and said, "So all the more reason for you to agree. Isn't that right, big brother?" Li Xiaobing's last sentence was directed at Wang Yu. Wang Yu stared at Li Xiaobing and said with a murderous look, "Let her go, and I will pretend this never happened." "So you are willing to cooperate? I just don't know if you can represent President Wu Ji." Li Xiaobing seemed to feel that something was wrong with the atmosphere. However, with the Laihu warlord and the others here, he didn't think that Wang Yu would dare to make a move. He thought that Wang Yu was begging him. Wang Yu said with red eyes, "I am not negotiating with you. I am warning you." Li Xiaobing smiled and said provocatively, "What if I say no? I will make you wish you were dead, and then you will be kicked out of this game." Wang Yu said word by word. Li Xiaobing laughed and said, "Ha ha. Big brother, many people have said the same thing to me. Without exception, the more you boast, the worse your end will be. Shifu, teach this brother a lesson." Me? Shifu's expression was uglier than if he were to cry. "What? You don't want to listen to me anymore?" Li Xiaobing said angrily. "Fine." Li Xiaobing was the boss after all. Since he was eating his food, he was naturally under his control. No matter how unreasonable Li Xiaobing's orders were, Shifu didn't dare disobey. He could only bite the bullet and swing his sword. At the same time, he said to the others in the channel, "Help me." When Wang Yu saw Shifu looking at him, he dodged to the side. Shifu jumped lightly and swung his sword at Wang Yu again. "Yo, chain slash. You're an expert." Wu Ji was slightly surprised when he saw Shifu's movements. In the system mode, the swing of a sword had to go from the starting point to the finishing point. The process was not as smooth as in the manual mode. As a result, players in the system mode could not attack as quickly as in the manual mode. However, in the manual mode, the players' attack completion rate was low, and their hit rate was low. Their attack power could not keep up. To make up for this shortcoming, the experts in the system mode had developed the skill of chain slash. Once the sword was swung, the player would jump to stop the swing, and then swung his sword again. The skill of this skill was determined by the height of the player's jump. The lower the jump, the faster the slash, and the stronger the rhythm of the attack. From Shifu's jump, it was obvious that he was not weak. Of course, whether he was weak or not depended on his opponent. In the eyes of an expert in the manual mode like Wang Yu, the so-called skills of the players in the system mode could not be considered as a combat method. Before Shifu's second slash, Wang Yu had already cut into Shifu's chest. He grabbed Shifu by the neck and tossed him onto the table. Rock rush! At that moment, sudden change of circumstances waved his staff, and a huge stone pillar rose from beneath Wang Yu. The Laihu warlord and Zhu Wushan moved to the sides, forming a circle to block Wang Yu's path. Wang Yu did not retreat. Instead, he advanced. He rolled forward and swung his universe saber out of its scabbard. A circle of saber light swept toward everyone present. Grandmasters of combat had always been weak in AoE attack. Ever since he discovered that this skill could be used in AoE attacks, Wang Yu often used this skill when he was outnumbered. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. This slash was a critical hit. 4 flashes of white light flashed, and Shifu, the Laihu warlord, and the other 2 were instantly reduced to white light by Wang Yu's slash. Sudden change of circumstances was indeed an expert. Before he died, he had placed a shield of earth on Li Xiaobing. Surprisingly, Li Xiaobing, a level 10 smurf, had survived. With the shield of earth shattered, Li Xiaobing had a look of disbelief on her face. She looked at Wang Yu as if she was looking at a monster. These 4 were the strongest players in Xiaobing's workshop. How could they be killed in just 2 rounds? Was she dreaming? Before Li Xiaobing could react, Wang Yu jumped in front of Li Xiaobing and grabbed her in his hand, just as he was about to swing his saber and kill her. Chapter 426. Hearing Wuji's words, Wang Yu immediately stopped. That's right. Wind City was huge. There were guild encampments everywhere. If Li Xiaobing did not say anything, who knew where Mu Zixian was? According to Mu Zixian, that guild was called Twilight Guild. After Wang Yu received the news, he immediately asked Tiger of Counterattack, who used to play in Wind City. Tiger of Counterattack said that he had never heard of Twilight Guild. It seemed that Twilight Guild was a small guild that even the veteran players of Wind City did not know. After all, even a large guild like Wind and Cloud did not reveal themselves. It was reasonable for Twilight Guild to be unknown. Moreover, Li Xiaobing was only a level 10 player. His level was definitely not important to him. Killing him would be letting him off too easily. Seeing that Wang Yu had stopped, Li Xiaobing sorted out his panicked expression and said proudly, "Not bad, your wife is in my hands. If you kill me, don't even think about knowing where she is. How about it, can we talk about working together now?" Talk my ass. Li Xiaobing once again used Mu Zixian as a threat. Wang Yu's anger flared again. He turned to Wuji and said, "Heal him, don't let him die." Saying that, Wang Yu grabbed Li Xiaobing's wrist with his left hand and lifted Li Xiaobing's elbow with his right hand. With a crack, Li Xiaobing's arm was twisted out of shape. Although Wuji was an outsider, he could tell that the bones were broken. The authentic tendon dislocation hand was a joint technique. Even if the target was dislocated, as long as Wang Yu was willing, he could straighten the bones back. This time, Wang Yu was more angry. He did not even think about straightening the bones and directly did something to the bones. 997 inches the game, this kind of joint technique did not have high damage. In addition, Wang Yu did not use the authentic technique, so Li Xiaobing did not die. Although there was no pain in the game, there was still the pressure of having one's bones broken. Even the bystanders felt uncomfortable when they heard it, let alone Li Xiaobing. Li Xiaobing's face turned ashen when she saw her 3-sectioned arm. She suddenly had a feeling that she wanted to die. How could Wuji let him die so easily? He waved his staff and cast 2 healing spells. Li Xiaobing's HP was restored. At the same time, Wang Yu grabbed Li Xiaobing's left leg and pulled it from behind to Li Xiaobing's right shoulder. The sound of bones breaking caused Wuji's scalp to go numb. This was really worse than death. Luckily, this was in the game. If it was in reality, Wang Yu would have been killed instantly. Wang Yu grabbed Li Xiaobing's palm and threatened, "Are you going to tell me or not? If you don't, I'll break your bones one by one." Wang Yu also underestimated Li Xiaobing's endurance. In the game, no matter how you tortured someone, there was no pain. Most people were not even afraid of death. Mu Zixian was related to the fundamental interests of Li Xiaobing. How could Li Xiaobing compromise so easily? Li Xiaobing looked like a troublemaker and said, "If you think I can compromise with this, then you can torture me." Humph. Wang Yu looked at Li Xiaobing and knew that this grandson was not afraid of him. He then snorted and slapped Li Xiaobing into white light. Wuji was shocked. "Why did you kill him before he even said anything?" Do you think he will tell us? Wang Yu asked. Wuji scratched his head and said, Let's promise him first, then we'll be able to trick him. From the beginning, Wuji wanted to stall for time. Who knew that Wang Yu would be so angry and directly make a move? It was no wonder, no one would be able to remain calm in this situation. I'm disgusted by him. I don't want to compromise with him. Then do you have a way to get him out? Yes. As he said this, Wang Yu opened his friends list and asked Mu Zixin, Do you know that you've been kidnapped? Kidnapped? Mu Zixin was stunned for a moment when she heard that. Then, she looked around and realized that she was surrounded by people. Moreover, they were all secretly staring at her. Immediately, she reacted. At first, Mu Zixin thought that these people had never seen a beauty before. I think so. What's the use of kidnapping in the game? Mu Zixin asked curiously. If I kidnap you, then the shop will be gone. Wang Yu said. In Rebirth, players' shops had to pay taxes. If the shop owner didn't come online for a period of time, the shop would be taken back by the system. Then, Wang Yu said, Can you kill yourself and come back? After calming down, Wang Yu's brain was still very good. Mu Zixin quickly replied, In the safe zone, I can't kill myself. Then do you know your current location? Wang Yu asked again. I'll observe first, then I'll tell you. Mu Zixin used to be a customer service employee in the game. Mu Zixin knew the map information in the game better than any other player in the game. Therefore, she didn't need to deliberately ask. She could determine her coordinates just by looking at the terrain. Moreover, Rebirth didn't have the same distribution of monsters in the main city. Even normal players could guess the monsters at the entrance of the guild encampment. After closing the chat with Wang Yu, Mu Zixin got up and walked towards the entrance of the guild encampment. This player from a small guild hurriedly stopped Mu Zixin and said, This is the guild's restricted area. Visitors are not allowed. Mu Zixin heard this and once again confirmed that she was really kidnapped. Then, she sized up the surroundings of the guild encampment. Not long after, Wang Yu received Mu Zixin's reply. The terrain is Sky Wind Ridge. There are a total of 3 guild encampments in Sky Wind Ridge. The lowest level encampment is between level 20 to 30. Let's go to Sky Wind City. After receiving Mu Zixin's message, Wang Yu got up and was about to leave. Wuji said, We only have a dozen people. If we rashly go and save people, I'm afraid the outcome will be very tragic. We can call Blood Red War Flag and the others. The other party is a studio. Blood Red War Flag has already helped us a lot by helping us defend our encampment. If we ask them to cross the city and attack another guild, I'm afraid Blood Red War Flag won't be able to make the decision. Wuji said indifferently. Blood Alliance was a business guild. When they did things, they had to consider benefits. If they offended a studio for no reason, the boss of Blood Alliance would definitely not be happy. Wang Yu didn't know what to say. Moreover, even if we attack Twilight Guild's encampment, how much damage do you think we can do to Xiaobing's studio? Will they be afraid? Xiaobing's studio was a large studio. There would definitely be more than one encampment like this. Attacking one of them wouldn't hurt them at all. Then what do you think they're most afraid of? Wang Yu asked with a slight headache. Li Xiaobing wasn't even afraid of the tendon dislocation hand. Wang Yu couldn't think of what he would be afraid of. Wuji laughed and said, Li Xiaobing is a businessman. What he's most afraid of is having no money and no market. So, we have to find professional help for this kind of thing. Chapter 427. Brother, I heard that you have a big deal? The person who sent the message was Evildoers Run Wild. Wang Yu opened the message bar and could feel Evildoers Run Wild's impatient aura even though he was thousands of miles away. How did you know? Wang Yu asked, puzzled. The confrontation between Chuanjin and Xiaobing's studio had only happened in the past 2 days. Wang Yu and Evildoers Run Wild rarely contacted each other in the game, so he didn't tell Evildoers Run Wild. Evildoers Run Wild said, The forum was in a mess at first, and I tried to figure it out, but I heard from my people that Xiaobing Studio has joined forces with a lot of studios, and they are determined to cooperate with you. Oh, they didn't look for you? Wang Yu asked again. To move unhindered was undoubtedly the biggest force in the studio, but Li Xiaobing didn't look for evildoers run wild. My studio is too big, so he doesn't dare to look for me. What's wrong? Have you reached an agreement with him? It's better to work with me than to work with him. After all, we should keep the goodies within our own fields. Rampant the demon blabbered on. Wang Yu was speechless. Turned out that this kid was here to talk business with him. Cooperation, my ass. Those B***cheese kidnapped your sister-in-law and threatened me. I don't know how to deal with them. How can I cooperate with him? Evildoers run wild paused for a while and repeated in disbelief. Xiaobing Studio kidnapped my sister-in-law. Yeah, she's locked up in the Twilight Guild station in Wind City. Speaking of this, Wang Yu said with some anger and amusement, Kid, didn't you brag to me? Where are your hundreds of thousands of men? Lend me some to wipe out Xiaobing Studio. Wang Yu had once been ambushed by members of Reigning the World, so he knew that the demon rampage had quite a few subordinates under him. However, Wang Yu subconsciously never thought that there would come a day when he would need the help of the guy who he had bullied since he was a child. Hence, he did not think about this matter for a moment. Since the demon rampage had come knocking on his door, he would not let him go so easily. F***ck, this bunch of trash, where are you now? Evildoers run wild, asked Wang Yu. Yu Huiqing Tavern. Wait for me, I'll be right there. Wang Yu was stunned for a moment. What's the use of you doing it yourself? Cut the crap. Wait for me. Wang Yu was speechless. This brat had really grown up. He even dared to talk to him like this. Seeing Wang Yu's expression, Wuji asked with a smile, Did the professionals look for you? And Wang Yu nodded. Compared to Chuanjin, Evildoers Run Wild was indeed a professional. How many people did you bring? Wuji asked again. I don't know. Wang Yu shook his head. Wuji said to himself, I hope I can bring more. 10 minutes later, Evildoers Run Wild came to the tavern in a hurry. Boss, tell me, what should we do about this? Evildoers Run Wild sat down and asked directly. Before Wang Yu spoke, Wuji asked with a smile, Evildoer boss, tell me how many people you have first. I don't have many people with time, so I stopped working in the mine. Is 100,000 people enough? Asked Evildoers Run Wild. 100,000? F***ck. Even people like Wang Yu and Wuji, who were used to big scenes, could not help but be shocked by Evildoers Run Wild's boldness. If it's not enough, I'll stop working in other industries and ask everyone to come, said Evildoers Run Wild. To move unhindered. When they first entered the game, they had tens of thousands of members. They occupied most of the mining areas in the main cities. Evildoers Run Wild also made a lot of money and officially became the largest gaming studio in the gaming circle. Later, Evildoers Run Wild's business became bigger and bigger. Other than the lack of professionals in the pharmaceutical industry, they were involved in jewelry, armor materials, and all the other sub-industries. This was especially true for their main business, mining. Currently, all 300 major cities were monopolized by Unhindered the World. After the official launch of the game, a large number of players poured into the game, and Unhindered the World's size immediately expanded to 200,000 members. In this era where the number of players in a guild was usually measured in thousands, a guild with 200,000 people was definitely invincible. Even the strongest player would have to learn how to keep a low profile when facing such a huge monster. Wuji hurriedly said, Enough, enough. At the same time, Wuji was secretly shocked. Evildoers Run Wild was really generous. Back then, 3 Evildoers Village had tens of thousands of people and was already the biggest guild in the industry. This guy was so young, but he actually made such a big scene. It seemed that Wang Yu's family was not as poor as he said. Wang Yu heard Evildoers Run Wild's words and was also shocked. Wang Yu thought that he knew his brother well. Evildoers Run Wild liked to talk big since he was young, so when he told Wang Yu that he had tens of thousands of followers, Wang Yu did not take it seriously. Who knew that this guy would really make such a big scene? He's really grown up. Wang Yu looked at Evildoers Run Wild, and then looked at himself. He suddenly felt that compared to his brother, he was missing something. That small guild is in Wind City Sky Wind Ridge. The coordinates are we have to. Wang Yu was just about to tell Evildoers Run Wild how to fight this battle. Evildoers Run Wild waved his hand and said boldly, "You don't have to tell me how to fight, just tell me who to fight and how to fight. Fight Xiaobing Studio, beat them up until they don't dare to stay in the game." Wang Yu was an honest person. Since he had already said it to Li Xiaobing, he naturally had to do what he said. "Okay. It's not the first time I've disliked these guys," Evildoers Run Wild said with a fierce look. Wu Ji took the opportunity to say, "These fellows have recently purchased quite a lot of potions and supplies in the guild. With those supplies, if they cooperate with our people, do you know what high-level potions are?" "Really?" Evildoers Run Wild was happy when he heard this. He had been coveting the huge profits in the potion market for a long time. "Of course." Wu Ji smiled and said, "Okay. Leave this to me." Evildoers Run Wild patted his chest and said, "Brother, just wait for me to bring sister-in-law back." After that, Evildoers Run Wild did not stop at all and rushed out of the tavern again. Wang Yu was speechless. He just came and left. Couldn't he just say it privately? Why did he have to make a trip? Wu Ji picked up the wine glass and drank it. Then he looked at the back of Evildoers Run Wild outside the window and said meaningfully, "I'm afraid Xiaobing Studio is going to become history." From the moment Li Xiaobing said that he kidnapped Mu Zixian, Wu Ji knew that Xiaobing Studio was finished. In Rebirth, except for noobs like Wang Yu, everyone knew that to move unhindered was the guild that should not be messed with. Xiaobing's workshop and Reigning the World were competitors to begin with. Moreover, the evildoer Rampage had been eyeing Xiaobing's workshop like a tiger eyeing its prey. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't find a reason to do so, he would have long since made his move against Xiaobing's workshop, the company that controlled the largest profit chain in the game. Who knew that Xiaobing Studio would do such a thing now? They actually kidnapped Evildoers Run Wild's sister-in-law. Evildoers Run Wild was really someone who sent a pillow to Evildoers Run Wild just when he was about to doze off. Evildoers Run Wild would not let Xiaobing Studio off easily. Chapter 428. Although Li Xiaobing was the boss of Wind and Cloud Guild, she wasn't a member of Wind and Cloud Guild. After being killed by Wang Yu, Li Xiaobing resurrected at the resurrection point in Afterglow City. Then, she was brought to the office of Xiaobing Studio in Afterglow City. Li Xiaobing was furious. She didn't expect Wang Yu to be so stubborn. Not only did he attack her, but he also tortured her so badly. Thinking back to how Wang Yu tortured her, Li Xiaobing felt a chill down her spine. Seeing Li Xiaobing's dark expression, Dawn Moon Ice and the others didn't dare to say anything. The atmosphere in the office was extremely cold. After a long while, Li Xiaobing finally calmed down. "Boss, now that they aren't cooperating, what should we do?" Dawn Moon Ice asked softly. Actually, Dawn Moon Ice also felt that this was too much. Even if business failed, using such a method to force others, even if it succeeded, it wouldn't last long. Li Xiaobing said hatefully, "Forget it. Inform everyone to gather in Yuhuiqing and attack their base once more. I don't believe that Blood Alliance will dare to interfere with our work." Things had already escalated to such a stage, and Li Xiaobing didn't expect to cooperate. She could only forcefully pull out this nail. Dawn Moon Ice was troubled. Wind and Cloud Guild's crystal contract is still in their hands. Wind and Cloud Guild was the biggest guild under Xiaobing Studio. If they were destroyed by Chuanjin, their losses wouldn't be small. Li Xiaobing said, "Scoff, I just sent people to move the items in the guild storage to another base. One base isn't worth much and their people are still in our hands. Just the loss of one shop is no less than ours. Dawn Moon Ice was speechless. In her impression, Li Xiaobing had always been a calculative businesswoman. This time, he was willing to risk his own losses to fight them. It seemed like Chuanjin had really angered him. Okay, I will gather people now. Dawn Moon Ice thought about it and helplessly sent a message to the other studios. Destroy Chuanjin? We're businessmen, we can't do this kind of thing. Those who dared to open a studio would not be too stupid. After receiving the news from Xiaoyebing, all the studios realized that Xiaoyebing's studio wanted to use them as cannon fodder. Xiao Yu replied coldly, "We're not just destroying Chuanjin, we're destroying the entire gaming market. We can only do business properly without him." Once upon a time, studios were known as the cancer of gaming. Who would have thought that these people would have the opportunity to call others cancer? TSK, the game market? It's just the market for your Xiaobing studio, right? The people in charge of the studio replied coldly. Xiaobing's studio and Chuanjin currently monopolized the entire pharmaceutical market. Chuanjin was the strongest party. According to the principle of cooperation, it would be beneficial for all the studios to get rid of Chuanjin. However, the one with the most benefits was naturally the second largest studio, Xiaobing Studio, so no one was willing to work for free. Motherf *Ker, Xiao Yu coldly cursed and replied, "If we destroy Chuanjin, our Xiaobing Studio is willing to share 80% of the pharmaceutical market with everyone." 80%? When the big bosses of the studios heard this, they immediately perked up. As long as the game continued, the pharmaceutical market's prospects would be incomparably broad. Such a big cake, even if it was only 1%, it would be a huge profit for these small studios. It was obvious that Xiaobing's studio was willing to share 80% of the market, which was already their bottom line. After a moment of silence in the chat room created by Xiao Yu coldly, the big bosses of the studios expressed their stance one after another. Let me say this first, we're not doing this because of the pharmaceutical market, but for the balance of the entire industry. Therefore, I hope that your Xiaobing studio will remember this favor. Of course. Xiao Yu coldly looked at this group of thick-skinned and black-hearted guys talking nonsense and secretly sighed in her heart, in this day and age, no one is a fool. All right, where do we meet? Yu Huicheng. All right, we'll be there in 20 minutes. To move unhindered here, Evildoers Run Wild had already obtained all the information about Xiaobing's studio. Xiaobing's studio was currently the biggest monopoly in the professional gaming circle. Currently, they owned large studios in 12 games, monopolizing the gaming market. Among them, the biggest was Rebirth. In Rebirth, Xiaobing's studio had a total of 10 guilds, and they were located at. The names were. The guild residences were. Looking at the information in his hand, Evildoers Run Wild pointed at Wind City and said boldly to his subordinates, "Other than this Twilight Guild, wipe out all their residences and warehouses. Why don't you cleanse Twilight?" Evildoers Run Wild grinned and said, "Because we need a reason. Wipe Twilight Guild last." All right. At this moment, all the bosses of the studios had arrived at Xiaobing's office. Their subordinates had also arrived at Yu Huicheng's office, ready to attack Chuanjin at any time. After some small talk, just as Li Xiaobing was about to deploy for the battle, a system notification flashed over everyone's heads. System notification: to move unhindered to launch a residence's battle against Wind and Cloud Guild. F***CK. Hearing this, all the players in the game were shocked. What day is it today? Is there a reward for participating in a guild battle? To move unhindered, why are they here to join in the fun? To move unhindered, don't tell me they are here to take revenge for Chuanjin. Wind and Cloud Guild had just finished their battle with Chuanjin. Although Chuanjin didn't lose, being challenged by others meant that they were provoked. It wasn't strange for them to get back at them. Someone retorted, "Bullsh*t." To move unhindered, who would collude with those hype dogs? That's true. To move unhindered was definitely the biggest guild in the game. To move unhindered, a small guild like Chuanjin wasn't even fit to carry shoes for move unhindered. After receiving this news, Li Xiaobing and the bosses of the studios were the most flabbergasted. Boss Li, what's going on? To move unhindered, how did you offend that demon? Unhindered the world. That was the largest gaming studio in the gaming circle. They had a guild in every corner of the game. The 4 words, unhindered the world, were definitely true to their name. Even if all the gaming studios present were to be added together, they would not even be a third of the size of unhindered the world. Therefore, subconsciously, no one saw to move unhindered as a competitor. It was just like how no matter how big the triads in China were, they didn't dare to treat the country as an imaginary enemy. However, why would such a huge studio cause trouble for Xiaobing's studio for no reason? Chapter 429. If they did not help Xiaobing's studio, they would at most earn less. If they helped Xiaobing's studio and offended a guild that they should not have, it would be a disaster. Li Xiaobing was confused as well, but in order to calm the players down, she explained, "Don't worry, everyone. Wind and Cloud Guild has just lost a battle, and Reigning the World might be trying to take advantage of the situation. Xiaobing's workshop definitely has no grudges with Reigning the World, Boss Li, don't lie to us," everyone said doubtfully. To move unhindered or taking advantage of others was unheard of, but they believed that Li Xiaobing was a smart person. To move unhindered would not do something so stupid. Li Xiaobing swore, "I'm not lying. System notification. 1,000 Miles has launched a base battle against Money Gang." Just as Li Xiaobing finished her sentence, the system made another announcement. F***CK. You still dare to say that none of you can dominate the world? Seeing this announcement, everyone could no longer sit still. In the span of a few minutes, 2 guilds under Xiaobing's workshop had been attacked consecutively. None of them would believe that they had not provoked unhindered. Li Xiaobing panicked. She opened the chatroom and asked in confusion, "What's going on?" The chatroom was in a mess. Seeing Li Xiaobing, it calmed down. Someone replied, "I don't know." "Boss, you don't know either." "I don't know." "Have our resources been moved?" Li Xiaobing was most concerned about the resources of the studio. To move unhindered was fine. As long as they had the resources, they could just start over with a new name. Money Gang's leader, Qian Ningxin, said, "To move unhindered people are everywhere in the city. The teleportation point is completely blocked. Our people can't go back at all." There were 10 guilds under Xiaobing's studio, but Wind and Cloud Guild was the only one with real strength. The other guilds were just storage for Xiaobing's studio. After all, the storage in the city cost money. The storage in the city was not only big, but it was also free. It was the best storage place. "Can't go back." Li Xiaobing was dumbfounded. She hurriedly said, "Everyone, return to your guilds and transport the supplies." In the end, the 10 guild leaders in the chat room gave the same answer. "The teleportation point is blocked by a lot of people. We can't return to the encampment at all." F***CK. Li Xiaobing was shocked and angry when she heard this. She only felt a loud bang and her mind became blank. System announcement. Unhindered 4 Seas has initiated a guild encampment war. System announcement. The Unhindered of the 9 states has initiated a garrison war against the guild. Following that, a series of system announcements shocked the entire game world. At the same time, Li Xiaobing completely lost consciousness. The office of Xiaobing's studio was silent. Everyone was stunned and didn't know what to say. Boss Li, I suddenly remembered that my wife is giving birth today, so I'll be leaving first." "My wife is also giving birth. I'm getting married today. Aren't you married? Can't you get married a second time?" "Boss Li, I do have something important to do today. If you need any help in the future, just contact me. Don't look for me for the next few days." The group of people tried their best to disassociate themselves from Xiaobing's studio and ran out of the office as if they were escaping. Who knew if Xiaobing's studio would still exist in the game after a few days? To move unhindered guilds from Xiaobing's studio were incomparable. In the face of absolute strength, any tactics were a joke. To move unhindered 100,000 people were divided into 9 groups. First, they blocked the teleportation point so that the people from Xiaobing's studio could not return to the encampment. Then, with a crushing attitude, they took down all of Xiaobing's studio's encampments. Finally, they cleaned out all the resources in the encampment warehouse. Looking at the last of the 10 guilds that she had painstakingly built, Li Xiaobing finally came to her senses. Li Xiaobing knew that she had lost this time, but she had to understand why she had lost. She couldn't die in confusion. Hence, Li Xiaobing added Evildoers Run Wild as a friend. Demon Boss. After adding the friend request, Li Xiaobing sent a message. Evildoers Run Wild knew that Li Xiaobing would add him as a friend. That's not right. Aren't you afraid of being criticized by the public? Li Xiaobing said indifferently. No matter what, a studio was still a business circle. Even in the game, it was fine if it was a normal player, but if a studio brazenly looted someone else's warehouse, in the eyes of industry insiders, it was a very low-end behavior. It would be criticized and targeted by all the players. To move unhindered was true. In the face of hundreds of millions of players, 200,000 was just a number. It had to be known that the power of the people's war was endless. Evildoers Run Wild said coldly, "Boss Li, you're too forgetful. Have you forgotten what heinous things you've done? Compared to your behavior, I feel that I'm at least open and aboveboard." Li Xiaobing's kidnapping of others to force them to cooperate could be regarded as kidnapping for extortion, while the evildoer's rampage was just a tit-for-tat type of revenge. Between the two, although Li Xiaobing's methods were brilliant, the nature of her methods was far inferior. Li Xiaobing said, "I dare to swear that I've never done anything to let you down. To move unhindered." What a joke! To move unhindered, such a huge monster had already affected the balance of the game. No matter how arrogant Li Xiaobing was, she wouldn't go to the point of seeking death. Just now, Li Xiaobing quietly thought for a long time and confirmed that she hadn't provoked them. To move unhindered. "You're really forgetful." Evildoers Run Wild said, "I'm at the teleport point in Wind City's west. If there's anything, we can talk face to face." "Please wait for a moment," Li Xiaobing replied and rushed to Tianfeng City. Half an hour later, Li Xiaobing brought Dawn Ice and the others to the teleport point that Evildoer mentioned. Just as the subordinate had said, the teleportation point was tightly surrounded. A person was sitting cross-legged at a very conspicuous location. That person's face was very familiar, and he was currently staring at Li Xiaobing, who was inside the teleportation point. "It's you." "To move unhindered players," Li Xiaobing shouted. "Are you Li Xiaobing?" Evildoers Run Wild asked. As he spoke, Evildoers Run Wild waved his hand and signaled for his subordinate to release Li Xiaobing. "Humph, I can't believe that you actually spent money to bribe someone to move unhindered," Li Xiaobing said unwillingly. From his point of view, if someone from domination was willing to help, then Wang Yu must have spent a lot of money. Evildoers Run Wild said, "I'm Evildoers Run Wild." Li Xiaobing was slightly taken aback. He sneered and said, "What are you pretending for? Aren't you called Iron Ox?" "Iron Ox?" Evildoers Run Wild laughed and said, "That's my brother, my biological brother." Chapter 430. Brother. When Li Xiaobing heard Evildoers Run Wild's words, she felt as if her world had turned upside down. Dawn Moon's Glacial Frost and the others who accompanied her also had expressions of disbelief on their faces. The younger brother was the boss of the number 1 guild in the game, while the older brother was entertaining himself in a small guild with only a dozen or so people. If it weren't for the fact that the two of them looked extremely similar, no one would have believed what evildoers run wild said. Li Xiaobing was stunned on the spot, her mind full of thoughts. Since Wang Yu was evildoers run wild's older brother, then the woman she kidnapped was evildoers run wild's sister-in-law. This wasn't just poking a hornet's nest, it was practically detonating an atomic bomb. Originally, Li Xiaobing thought that Wang Yu's threat of making her life a living hell and not being able to survive in the game was just a boast made in anger. After all, life in the game was unlimited, and as a professional player, levels didn't have much of an effect on Li Xiaobing. Therefore, no matter how cruel Wang Yu's methods were, he couldn't hurt Li Xiaobing's foundation. To move unhindered, who knew that Wang Yu's younger brother was actually the guild leader? There were many big guilds in the game, and each of the big clubs had enough capital. To move unhindered might not be invincible in the game, but in the area of studios, to move unhindered had the absolute right to speak. To move unhindered to this extent, Li Xiaobing didn't dare to hope that evildoers run wild would allow her to survive in the game. Li Xiaobing was a person who would do things by hook or by crook. She never regretted doing something, but after hearing evildoers run wild's words, not only did Li Xiaobing secretly regret, but her face was also filled with despair. Boss! Dawn Moon's glacial frost looked at Li Xiaobing's lifeless face and couldn't help but shout. Everyone disperse! Li Xiaobing waved her hand at Dawn Moon's glacial frost and the others and said calmly. What do you mean by dispersing? Xiao Yu's ice-cold face was ashen. Everyone was smart. Of course, Dawn of Ice and others could understand that Li Xiaobing didn't mean that they would go back to their own homes, but that the studio would be disbanded. The income of Xiaobing's studio was definitely the highest in the industry. If they were to disband, wouldn't that mean that a large number of people would lose their jobs? Dismiss, we've lost. Then, Li Xiaobing said to evildoers run wild, Evildoer boss, this is my fault. I'm willing to disband the studio, but my brothers have to make a living. I hope you won't make things difficult for them in the future. Li Xiaobing's character was not very good, but she was also a person who could take it up and let it go. Now that things had come to this, her performance was also very magnanimous. Boss! Dawn Moon, Ice, and the others said in unison, let's try again. Li Xiaobing said, no, I can't drag you down because of me. That's it. Looking at these melodramatic guys, evildoers run wild touched his chin and said, looking at you guys like this, why do I feel that I'm the bad guy? Besides, my brother only said that you won't be able to survive in a rebirth. Really? Hearing evildoers run wild's words, Li Xiaobing and the others suddenly showed a glimmer of hope. The studio industry was actually not for a specific game, but for the entire gaming industry. To move unhindered to such a large scale, as long as he was willing, he could definitely make Xiaobing's studio disappear in the gaming industry. However, listening to evildoers run wild's words, he didn't want to be ruthless. The current online gaming industry was very developed. Even if they lost the most valuable market, rebirth, the studio would not starve to death. Evildoers run wild said, my brother said it, not me. Thank you. Li Xiaobing thanked evildoers run wild with complicated feelings. Once upon a time, Li Xiaobing had made a name for herself in this game. However, in the blink of an eye, she had been completely swallowed up by someone else. Furthermore, she still had to thank the enemy who did not kill her. How ironic was that? After saying that, Li Xiaobing sent a message in the studio's chat room, and then everyone in Xiaobing's studio went offline. Evildoers Run Wild also received a notification: Twilight Guild has surrendered. After Li Xiaobing went offline, Evildoers Run Wild asked Wang Yu, who was sitting in the corner, "Are you really letting them go?" Just now, Wang Yu asked Evildoers Run Wild to say that. Wang Yu said, "Didn't you already quit the game? People like this should be completely eliminated." Evildoers Run Wild said with some dissatisfaction. Wang Yu said, "It's just a game. He's learned enough. Besides, his employees have to eat too." Mercy to the enemy is irresponsibility to yourself. I understand that, but you don't know, when people are really forced to the point where they don't have food to eat, they will do even more outrageous things. Wang Yu said. Really? You know? Wang Yu nodded. Yes, I know. At this time, Mu Zixin also teleported out of Twilight Guild's base. Wang Yu walked over and put his arm around Mu Zixin's shoulder and said to evildoers run wild, I'm so glad I met your sister-in-law. Evildoers run wild scratched his head in confusion. Mu Zixin pushed Wang Yu's hand away. What are you saying? How can you be so mushy in front of your brother? Can't you control yourself? It's nothing. I just think it's good to have you. Wang Yu smiled. Really? I'll cook something delicious for you tonight. Okay. You're back? When they returned to the Quan Zhen sect's encampment, for the first time, everyone was present. No one was surprised that Wang Yu was able to successfully bring Mu Zixin back. After all, even reigning the world had made a move. It would be surprising if Wang Yu failed to bring her back. Well, chick, here's something for you. Wang Yu took out a black fragment from his bag and threw it to Place One's Pride. To Place One's Pride took the fragment and shouted excitedly, Uncle Nyo, I love you. To Place One's Pride took out 7 identical fragments and put them on the table. Then, a purple light lit up. Everyone who was lucky enough to see the birth of an epic weapon shouted anxiously, Damn, chick, quickly show the attributes. To Place One's Pride proudly showed the attribute. Thorn of Despair, glove, epic, inactive, hint. Go to the Land of Despair and receive the quest to activate the Thorn of Despair from the Wandering Martialist. There's still a quest. To Place One's Pride said with some disappointment. Everyone looked at To Place One's Pride with disdain and said, Nonsense, do you think an epic weapon is so easy to get? Damn you, you're all jealous of me. Just when everyone was making a ruckus, Wuji walked in front of Wang Yu and said, I've decided. To move unhindered from now on, how about it? Why did you suddenly think of this? Wang Yu spread his hands. Wuji said, An innocent man will get into trouble because of his wealth. Only when he is strong enough can he protect the things he wants to protect. To be honest, don't let the goodies flow to outsiders. What else? You destroyed Xiaobing's studio so thoroughly that the materials can't be sold at a high price. I knew it. P.S. Some people may say that the protagonist is a saint, but when a person is desperate, it is really scary. At this time last year, I was cheated and penniless. I wandered the streets and didn't dare to go home. I only ate 3 meals a week to thank the most important woman in my life. Fortunately, I have you. Thank you. Chapter 431. To move unhindered. After Xiaobing's studio exited the game, they took over all of Xiaobing's studio's business. Chuanjin realized that they weren't cut out for business, so they simply threw all their resources to them. To move unhindered. To move unhindered was a big business, and the 2 guilds had a relationship with Wang Yu. Of course, evildoer wouldn't mistreat Chuanjin. After the resources were sold, Chuanjin made a huge profit. Especially Li Shui and Wang Yu. To move unhindered, Li Shui now had 80% of her potions for sale, and 20% for Mu Zixin's grocery store. Wang Yu didn't have to work every day to earn money. His days were pretty good. After Rebirth reached level 30, other than a few fixed story dungeons, the rest of the gameplay had to be researched by the players themselves. Without the corresponding level dungeons, the leveling speed of players after level 30 slowed down. After a week, the highest level in the game was only around level 35. Sunset Plateau was Yu Huiqing's level 50 monster area, and it was also where Wang Yu leveled up after level 35. The monsters here were mainly Sunset Rockmen and sparse Gobi Blood Eagles. If someone saw a Grandmaster of Combat leveling up here, they would definitely be shocked. The Sunset Rockmen had high attack and defense, and the Gobi Blood Eagles were extremely fast. Neither was easy for a Grandmaster of Combat to deal with. Moreover, the highest level of monsters in the main city of the game, other than some specific locations, was level 100. Level 50 was already an intermediate monster. Intermediate monsters not only had strong attributes, but they also had some special skills. They couldn't be compared to low-level monsters below level 50 at all. However, for Wang Yu, the Sunset Rockmen were humanoid monsters of the same level, and they were slow, very suitable for leveling up. As for the Gobi Blood Eagles, there were only a dozen of them in the entire Sunset Plateau. As long as he avoided them, he would be fine. If he couldn't avoid them, he could just kill them. It was a little troublesome, but it wasn't a problem for Wang Yu. Wang Yu cleared the monsters very quickly. The Sunset Rock Golem had 50,000 HP, and its special skill was to use the power of the earth to create a solid stone armor that covered its entire body. Its defense was extremely high. In the game's settings, once a monster was covered in stone armor, it would be difficult to ignore the monster's defense, even with a high completion rate in manual mode. The Sunset Rock Golem was supposed to be Wang Yu's biggest headache, but after Wang Yu learned 2 Grandmaster of Combat skills at level 35, this monster was basically a walk in the park. Qi Imbue. A Qi Gong Grandmaster imbues their Qi into their fists and legs to attack. Special effect: Armor Penetration. Iron Bones. Monks who specialize in external techniques have fists and feet that are as hard as steel. Special effect: Attack and defense are increased. Both of them were passive skills. Compared to reinforced iron bones, Qi Infusion was not very outstanding. Because Qigong Grandmasters were long-range attackers, they were not good at close combat. Qi Infusion could only be effective when their fists and feet touched. As a result, this skill was far inferior to reinforced iron bones, which increased attack and defense. Qigong Grandmaster's skills were as bad as ever from level 10 onwards. Players were used to it. After all, in a rare class like Grandmaster of Combat, only 2 out of 10 people would choose to be Qigong Grandmasters. In fact, if players could learn both skills, Qigong Grandmaster's effect was not bad. Because of the defense bonus of Iron Bones, it greatly increased the player's survival rate. Moreover, the attack had the effect of armor penetration, which was quite strong. From this point, the hidden class of Grandmaster of Combat was considered to be the first to show its strength. At this time, after Wang Yu skillfully killed a Sunset Rockman, he did not continue to look for the next one. Instead, he leaped back lightly and landed next to a large rock. Then, he shouted to the air beside him, "Who are you?" As he shouted, Wang Yu pushed the air beside him, and a thief with blank eyes was pushed out. "I'm talking to you. Why are you acting dumb?" Wang Yu stared at the thief and asked impatiently. This thief was sneaking behind others while they were leveling up. He must be up to no good. Fortunately, Wang Yu had a good temper. If it were someone else, this thief would probably be dead. Of course, this could not be blamed on the player's bad tempers. It was mainly because there were too many such examples in Rebirth. As a class with the stealth skill, the thief was simply more wretched than the other. In the game, there were many cases of players working hard to kill a boss, only to be killed by a passing thief along with their items. Because of this, the game company was pressuring the game company on the forum. Many people were calling for either weakening the stealth skill of the thief or giving other classes anti-stealth skills, and so on. However, the game company turned a deaf ear, which made all those who had been cheated by the thief resentful. What was even more infuriating was that not only did the pressure on the game company have no effect, but the number of thief classes in the game was increasing. Damn it. The thief that Wang Yu pushed out had pointed ears. It seemed to be an elven thief. Elves were born with high agility growth, and were most suitable for the 2 classes of archer and thief. Most of the thieves on the market today were elven thieves. However, as a new race, the highest level of elven thieves was only level 25. This was a level 50 monster area, and the stealth skill was extremely easy to be seen by the Gobi Blood Eagle with the sharp eyes talent. Since this guy could come here, he was obviously not simple. The elven thief was stunned for a moment and asked Wang Yu, "You're talking to me, is there someone else here?" Wang Yu asked. "You can see me?" The elven thief was shocked. "Yes." Wang Yu nodded and said, "Why are you standing behind me?" The elven thief scratched his head and said, "I'm lost. I wanted to ask for directions, but seeing that you were so serious, I didn't dare to disturb you." Lost. When Wang Yu heard the elven thief say this, the dissatisfaction in his heart instantly turned into sympathy. It couldn't be helped, Wang Yu was very sympathetic to lost people. "Okay, I'll believe you for now. What's your name?" Wang Yu asked. The elven thief replied, "Lone Wanderer." "Hey, very wuxia," Wang Yu muttered and asked the lone wanderer, "Where are you going? How did you get lost?" Yu Huiqing's terrain was neither a vast forest nor an endless desert, and the terrain was very unique. As long as one didn't have a bad sense of direction, the probability of getting lost was not high. "I'm going to Sunset Peak to do a quest." "Sunset Peak? You? Are you kidding?" Wang Yu said in surprise. Sunset Peak was also a level 50 leveling area, but it was different. Sunset Peak was full of gobi blood eagles, setting sun celestial eagles, and other monsters. Not only could bird-type monsters fly, but they also had astonishing attack power. They were also born with the innate talent of insight, which was a huge deterrent to squishy classes, especially thieves. Even a great expert like Wang Yu didn't want to go there, and this level 20 thief actually wanted to go to Sunset Peak. Wasn't this a joke? No matter how ridiculous the system's quests were, they were still within the player's capabilities. After all, Wang Yu's S-rank class advancement quest only required him to fight level 40 monsters. Chapter 432. Wild Quests. Wang Yu understood immediately after hearing the lone wanderer's words. The quests in Rebirth were not only controlled by the NPCs in the city, but there were also many quests from NPCs in the wild. Moreover, the quests from NPCs in the wild were better than those from the NPCs in the city. For example, quests for legendary or epic equipment could only be obtained from NPCs in the wild. Because of this, many players in Rebirth were keen on exploring the map to find these NPCs in the wild. However, although the quests from NPCs in the wild were good, they were not easy to complete. This was because the NPCs would only give out quests after the players had fulfilled the requirement. NPCs in the wild did not have this concern. As long as you dared to ask for a quest, they would give it to you, regardless of your level or strength. To place one's pride was unlucky enough to meet an NPC called Treasure Hunter when doing a weapon quest. That guy dared to ask to place one's pride to steal the treasures of the Dragon Emperor on Dragon Island. To place one's pride had accepted the quest. Not only did the favorability of the dragons decrease, but he also lost a lot of reputation points if he failed the quest. What was even worse was that as long as the quests from NPCs in the wild were not completed, anyone could accept them. This meant that even if the quest item was obtained, the person who completed the quest might not be the one. The designer of Rebirth had always designed the game with the concept of making people die, so it was not unusual for a level 20 thief to complete a quest in a level 50 monster area. Thinking of this, Wang Yu kindly reminded him, "Sunset Peak is full of level 50 monsters. You can't do it with your current strength. You should go back." The lone wanderer was disappointed. I see. Can you help me with the quest?" "Me?" Wang Yu asked incredulously. "Aren't you afraid that I'll steal your quest?" As there were no restrictions on accepting quests before they were completed, the quest items could be dropped. For example, after Wang Yu killed the lone wanderer and saw the quest item, he could directly go to the NPC that issued the quest to hand in the quest. In the game, no matter how vicious you were, you wouldn't have to face any legal consequences. There were examples of this, so whenever players received a wild quest, they would look for their closest friends to help them complete the quest. This thief actually asked a stranger to help him complete the quest. Wasn't he a little too bold? Solitary Jiang Hu said, "You are a grandmaster of combat. The reward for my mission is a thief's skill, which you have no use for." "You can sell it," Wang Yu said. Don't you know that the rewards of the wild quests are bound?" the lone wanderer asked in surprise. Bound items cannot be dropped or traded. Since field quests were unique, the quest rewards were also unique. Completing a field quest was a special achievement, so the quest rewards were bound to the player. The guild treasure that Xuanzhen's members had obtained during their last field quest was a bound item. Of course, the quest items were not bound to the player. While it was possible to sell the quest items, players could not see the quest rewards. Naturally, they would not recklessly bid for the quest items. Hence, the restrictions were too great. Wang Yu was an expert who could farm monsters 15 levels higher than him, yet he did not even know this basic setting. It really surprised the lone wanderer. Bound, I think so." Wang Yu thought for a while and said, "Little brother, why do you think I will help you?" "Because you are an expert and I have money," the lone wanderer said confidently. A person who could farm in a level 50 monster area, even a toenail would know that he was an expert. Hee, Wang Yu laughed and said, "How much are you willing to pay?" 500 gold coins. The lone wanderer said, "How about it?" Wang Yu heard this and was shocked. He sighed and said, 500 gold coins? You really don't lack money. The standard exchange rate of gold coins to RMB in Rebirth was 100. Since only RMB could be exchanged for gold coins and gold coins could not be exchanged for RMB, the cheapest exchange rate on the trading website was 180. 500 gold coins was 40,000. Nowadays, players who had a few hundred gold coins were already considered middle class. This thief actually spent 500 gold coins to hire someone to help him with a quest. It could be seen that he was indeed rich. No wonder he dared to use money as a word to brag about himself. "If you can successfully help me complete the quest, I will give you an additional 200 gold coins," the lone wanderer said again. "All right, it's a deal," Wang Yu happily agreed. "This is a mercenary contract." The lone wanderer took out a contract and handed it to Wang Yu. Looking at the way he took out the contract, he was quite familiar with it. It seemed like he often paid people to help him with quests. Wang Yu took the contract and looked it over. He clicked confirm and the contract turned into a white light. At the same time, a shared quest appeared in Wang Yu's quest window. Assassin's secret skill. Go to Sunset Peak and retrieve the dagger left behind by Assassin Leon. Quest rank. A. Quest reward. Rare Assassin skill X1. Without considering the level 50 monsters in Sunset Peak, this quest could be considered simple. Although finding a small dagger in the mountains sounded quite scary, everything was much simpler with the coordinates in the game. "Wait here, I will go get it for you," Wang Yu said to the lone wanderer after seeing the quest description. The monsters in Sunset Peak were too powerful. It was far easier for Wang Yu to rush up and retrieve the dagger himself than to bring along the burdensome lone wanderer. "No." The lone wanderer shook his head, then extended his arm to Wang Yu and said, "That dagger has a seal. Only I can pick it up." Wang Yu lowered his head to take a look. As expected, on the arm of the lone traveler, there was a 6-pointed star mark. It seemed like the system had also expected that someone would cheat like this. This way, the mission would be much more difficult. After all, it was already too much to deal with the monsters, and he also had to take care of the lone wanderer. No matter how powerful Wang Yu was, he could not take care of everything. This is not easy. When you accepted the quest, did the NPC give you any special tools or something? Wang Yu asked the lone wanderer. For quests like this, the quest NPC would usually give some tools to complete the quest. Even if there were no tools, they would more or less reveal some strategies. The lone wanderer thought for a moment and said, "Tools? No, but the NPC told me that there was a big disaster in Sunset Peak and he escaped from the back mountain. Back mountain? Yes. The lone wanderer nodded. Okay, then let's go to the back mountain to take a look. In the quest in Rebirth, every sentence from the NPC could be an entry point. Since the assassin deliberately said that he escaped from the back mountain, it could be seen that the key part of this quest was the back mountain. However, Wang Yu had a hunch that this quest was not as simple as it sounded. In addition to the back mountain, there was another key word in the NPC's words: disaster. Chapter 433. Sunset Peak was a mountain on the Sunset Plateau that was next to the Sunset Mountains. It was very close to where Wang Yu was. The monsters on this mountain were very dense. Not to mention the sunset wolves, which lived in groups. Even the birds that didn't live in groups were densely packed. It was very strange. Not long ago, Wang Yu had tried to go to Sunset Peak to take a look. In the end, halfway there, he couldn't stand the harassment of the monsters on the road and ran back. The lone wanderer was only a level 25 thief. Even if he had trained his stealth to the level of famed sword Daoshua, he would still be seen through by flying beasts like the setting sun condor. The only reason why the lone wanderer was able to reach the setting sun plateau was because there weren't many flying beasts there. If he had reached the setting sun peak, he would have definitely died. After a short while, Wang Yu and the lone wanderer arrived at the foot of Sunset Peak. Looking around, the layer of monsters at the foot of the mountain made the lone wanderer's heart jump. F***CK, what's going on here? In Rebirth, the monsters spawned at a normal density of 3 monsters within a 10-meter radius. At the foot of Sunset Peak, there were at least 10 monsters within a 10-meter radius. The density was more than 3 times that of a normal monster area. The lone wanderer had reached level 25 and ran all over the map, but he had never seen a place with so many monsters. As he said this, the lone wanderer activated stealth. Although he knew that stealth was useless in the eyes of these birds, he felt more at ease using stealth. This is just the beginning. The higher we go, the denser the monsters get. When we reached the waist of the mountain, there were a lot of them. TSK. Wang Yu said with lingering fear. You've been up the mountain before? Hearing Wang Yu say this, the lone wanderer was slightly stunned. Normal players wouldn't be able to survive if they were surrounded by monsters of the same level. The monsters here were all level 50, and they were the hardest to deal with. Wang Yu was actually able to pass through the monster area and climb up the mountain. This was a bit too strong. I've been up, but I was only halfway there. There were too many monsters and it was annoying. Were you surrounded and killed? No, I ran away, Wang Yu said. You're awesome, the lone wanderer exclaimed. Where is the back mountain? The lone traveler asked again. Wang Yu shook his head and said, I don't know either. Let's split up and look for it. Stay away from the monster area and don't get surrounded. Yes. The lone traveler of the martial world answered and walked to the 2 sides with Wang Yu. Soon, Wang Yu received a message from the lone wanderer. There's a small path here and there are many monsters at the intersection. Don't move, wait for me. After receiving the message, Wang Yu ran to the coordinates of the lone wanderer. The location mentioned by the lone traveler was a cliff. Above the cliff was a narrow suspension bridge that connected the Sunset Plateau and the Sunset Peak. On the other side of the drawbridge, there was a small path that led straight to the back of Sunset Peak. When Wang Yu arrived at the suspension bridge, the lone traveler was hiding behind a tree. There were at least 20 large birds circling around the bridge, which was less than 20 meters long. Setting Sun Divine Eagle, LV 50, HP, 10,000 MP, 2,000 skills. Eagle soars the sky, wing dive. Talent, sharp eyes can see stealth units. Seeing Wang Yu come over, the lone wanderer said to Wang Yu, I thought of a good strategy. Wang Yu was slightly stunned. What strategy? The lone wanderer said, You lure those monsters away, I'll cross the bridge first. It had to be said that this kid was very smart. He even knew how to lure the tiger away from the mountain. Who knew that Wang Yu would say in disdain, "What kind of lousy strategy is this? Don't worry, I'll give you money even if you die. How about I give you money first?" The lone wanderer thought that Wang Yu was worried that he wouldn't get the commission after he died, so he quickly persuaded him. Wang Yu smiled. "Just kill these monsters directly. It'll be troublesome if we lure them away." "Kill them directly? Are you kidding me?" When the lone wanderer heard that, he anxiously said, "These are 20 level 50 monsters." It was true that Wang Yu had said that she had gone up the mountain before. Putting aside the truth of this matter, passing through a monster zone and killing a monster zone were two completely different concepts, alright? Wang Yu didn't explain. He smiled faintly and walked toward the drawbridge. The lone wanderer was shocked. "F***ck, if you don't listen to me, I won't give you money if you die." Before the lone wanderer finished speaking, Wang Yu had already walked into the setting Sun Divine Eagle's aggro range. With such a high density of monsters, the setting Sun Divine Eagle's aggro range was definitely chain mines. The moment Wang Yu stepped into the monster zone, a red exclamation mark appeared on the heads of the 20 setting Sun Divine Eagles within the range of the drawbridge. Then, they all swooped down toward Wang Yu. Bang! 21-22 The remnant elephant exploded in the midst of the 20 setting Sun Condor Eagles. The setting Sun Condor Eagles within range lost a large chunk of their HP. The stun from the explosion also froze the setting Sun Condor Eagles in place. At this moment, Wang Yu suddenly appeared in the air and landed with a thunder stomp. 62-14 The blue lightning brought with it a bright red number. On the spot, 4 or 5 setting Sun Divine Eagles were killed. Most of the remaining setting Sun Divine Eagles were left with low HP. The low HP setting Sun Divine Eagle cried out in pain. It flapped its wings and shot into the sky. Wang Yu calmly leaped into the air with the setting Sun Divine Eagle and activated Whirlwind Kick. Bang bang bang. The 3 kicks of Whirlwind Kick killed all the setting Sun Divine Eagles within Wang Yu's attack range. Only 3 managed to escape. Wang Yu took out the Fire Dragon magic gun in midair and fired 3 shots. The 20 setting Sun Divine Eagles were all killed in less than 10 seconds. The solo player who witnessed this was so shocked that he couldn't speak. Although the solo player was a bit of a noob compared to Wang Yu, he wasn't a weakling since he dared to come to a level 50 monster area to do a quest at around level 25. At the very least, he had some foresight. If a normal player saw this scene, they would definitely be shocked at Wang Yu's farming efficiency. They would sigh at how amazing Wang Yu was. As for why he was amazing, apart from his high damage, there was no other explanation. However, the solo player was very clear. The hardest part of Wang Yu's set of movements was the afterimage at the beginning. Because stealth units were ineffective against setting Sun Divine Eagles, Wang Yu's afterimage couldn't hide from the setting Sun Divine Eagles. However, Wang Yu's afterimage exploded and hit all of the setting Sun Divine Eagles. As for why this happened, the only explanation was that the instant the setting Sun Divine Eagle hit Wang Yu, he activated his afterimage and jumped into the air. What incredible reaction speed, what incredible confidence! Could he be a first-rate god in the professional circle? Could he have spent 500 gold to find a first-rate god to do a quest for him? Thinking of this, the solo player felt that he had struck gold this time. Chapter 434. Let's go. After killing the monsters, Wang Yu waved at the lone wanderer behind the tree. The lone wanderer walked over excitedly and asked, "Nyogu, which team are you in?" "Team? I don't have a team," Wang Yu replied calmly. "No team?" The lone wanderer was surprised and asked, "You're also an unspecialized?" The so-called unspecialized referred to the lone wanderer in the game. They didn't have a guild or a fixed team. They were the kind of people who traveled alone. Even in dungeons they would join a random team. Unspecialized players belonged to a very extreme group. They were either as weak as dogs or as powerful as God. Because unspecialized players did everything alone. Rebirth was a game that emphasized teamwork. Without a fixed team, unspecialized players were destined to be unable to clear high-level dungeons or complete hidden quests. Therefore, 99% of unspecialized players were the lowest of noob. The more noobs they were, the less friends they had, and the less friends they had, the more noobs they were. Of course, there was another kind of exception, and that was the rich. Unspecialized players spent most of their time farming wild monsters to level up. The chances of encountering wild quests were relatively high. Normally, unspecialized players would weigh their abilities when encountering hidden quests and consider whether or not to accept them. Rich people had no such worries. As long as they had money, they could hire many people to help them complete quests. In the end, they could enjoy the quest rewards alone. Over time, these unspecialized players would become stronger and stronger. In the later stages of the game, they would become terrifying existences that even professional players wouldn't want to provoke. The lone wanderer was the latter type of unspecialized player. Now that he heard that Wang Yu didn't have a team, he naturally treated Wang Yu as one of them. Unspecialized player? I guess so. Wang Yu didn't really understand what an unspecialized player was, but it wasn't hard to understand from the literal meaning. It was the kind that trained alone. No wonder. I really misjudged him. The lone wanderer muttered to himself. Wang Yu scratched the back of his head in confusion. Then, he said, "Let's go, or else the monsters will respawn again." After crossing the suspension bridge, the system notified the two that they had discovered the back mountain. The back mountain of Sunset Peak and the front mountain were two completely different worlds. The map of the back mountain was a narrow path with messy rocks and not a single monster. Following the path, the two of them spiraled upwards. After walking for about 14 or 15 minutes, they finally reached the end of the path. At the end of the road was a precipitous cliff. It was smooth and very steep, about 100 meters high. Vines hung down from the cliff, and one of the thickest vines directly reached the ground. This should be the path to the back of the mountain. Looks like we need to climb up, the lone wanderer mumbled and asked Wang Yu, "Nyogu, have you learned any climbing skills?" Climbing was an innate skill of the thief class, but other classes could also learn it through rare skill book. Wang Yu shook his head and said, "No." Lone wanderer took out a skill book from his bag and tossed it to Wang Yu, saying, "Here, it just so happens that I bought an extra book." Wang Yu glanced at the lone wanderer in surprise. Climb was a very practical skill. Its price was not cheap either. Each skill book cost at least 50 gold coins. This fellow was even gifting a skill book to her just for helping her with a quest. How generous! Since Lone Wanderer took the initiative to give it, Wang Yu naturally didn't refuse. After receiving the skill book, Wang Yu conveniently stuffed it into his bag. If you don't learn a skill, you won't be able to climb up this mountain. Lone Wanderer saw that Wang Yu hadn't learned any skills, so he reminded him. Wang Yu smiled and said, "Don't worry about me. You go up first, I have my ways." "Really? Don't trick me." Lone Wanderer looked at Wang Yu strangely. He grabbed onto the vines with both arms and began to wriggle up like a worm. Seeing Lone Wanderer's clumsy movements, Wang Yu sighed inwardly. "Fortunately, I have the system's skills. Otherwise, it would be difficult for me to even move my arms." Although Lone Wanderer's movements were ugly, his movement speed was average. Before long, Lone Wanderer had climbed nearly 20 meters. Then, he turned his head to see if Wang Yu was following him. When he turned his head, the Lone Wanderer was so frightened that he fell off the vines. He saw Wang Yu holding a sword in each hand. His left hand stabbed the sword into the stone wall, and then he leaped onto the sword hilt. His right hand stabbed into the stone wall again, and he flipped up. At the same time, he waved his left hand and a white gas pulled the sword back. This repeated a few times until he was less than 2 meters away from Lone Wanderer. Although Wang Yu's method of climbing the mountain wasn't very safe, it was much faster and more aesthetically pleasing than climbing while holding on to the vines. Lone Wanderer was completely speechless. He didn't think that the game could be played this way. Nyogu, be careful. There are monsters at the top of the mountain. Seeing Wang Yu quickly climb over his head, Lone Wanderer shouted from behind. Wang Yu said as he climbed, I understand. I'll clear the path for you first. A height of 100 meters was nothing to Wang Yu. Very quickly, Wang Yu reached the edge of the mountain. However, as soon as Wang Yu peeked out, a huge spiked hammer suddenly fell on his head. Wang Yu was shocked. He activated Image Remnant and rolled to the top of the mountain. Looking closely, he saw two big guys with long tails smashing his Image Remnant with hammers. Sunset Mountain Demon, LV50, Elite, HP, 100000 MP, 10,000 skills. Sunset Bash, Sunset Screech talent. Destroy Wang Yu secretly wiped the sweat off his forehead. F***CK. Couldn't this game designer be more shameless? Setting up two of these things at this position, wasn't it obvious that he was trying to bring disaster to the players? It was fortunate that Wang Yu had climbed up first. If the Lone Wanderer had climbed up first, with the elf thief's small physique, he would have been smashed into smithereens by these two fellows. Bang! Wang Yu's Image Remnant was smashed by one of the mountain demons. The other mountain demon's hammer smashed into the vines, and the thick vines were smashed into juices. Lone Wanderer's shout came from the bottom of the mountain. Damn, that scared the hell out of me. The vines are 70% destroyed. Nyogo, don't let the monsters attack the vines anymore. Only then did Wang Yu understand that the two mountain demons' talent was destroy. It probably meant that they could destroy the terrain, sceneries in the game were always invincible. Even a mage's ultimate skill couldn't leave a scratch on the sceneries. These two could actually destroy sceneries. What a domineering skill. At this time, the two mountain demons realized that their target was Image Remnant. One of the mountain demons roared and swung its hammer at Wang Yu. Chapter 435. Wang Yu tried his best to dodge, but his legs wouldn't listen to him. He could only watch as the mountain demon's hammer came crashing down. F***CK, this stupid monster. Wang Yu cursed in his heart. He switched his boxing glove to a long stick and blocked the mountain demon's hammer. 245 Wang Yu was sent flying by the hammer. At the same time, a system notification popped up. Your weapon has been destroyed, 20% damaged. F***CK. Wang Yu immediately panicked. Wu Yu's Sai was Wang Yu's favorite, and it was destroyed by 20% in just one round. How could he still fight? Seeing the mountain demon charging at him again, Wang Yu didn't dare to fight it head-on. He rolled to the side. At that moment, the voice of the lone traveler came again. Nyogu, the vines are about to break. Don't let the mountain demons smash them again. When Wang Yu heard this, he raised his head and saw another mountain demon raising a giant hammer and using all his strength to smash the vines. The thick vines had already been smashed into smithereens. In the blink of an eye, Wang Yu rushed over with a collapsing fist and kicked at the mountain demon. The mountain demon that was swinging its hammer with its butt in the air was kicked by Wang Yu. It grunted and fell down the cliff. Bang! The sound of a free fall came from the bottom of the mountain. The poor mountain demon fell to its death. Nyogu is really ruthless, the lone traveler said sincerely. Wang Yu didn't bother with this kid because the mountain demon had run over with its hammer again. Wang Yu focused his attention on the mountain demon's weapon. The mountain demon rushed in front of Wang Yu and raised its hammer high. Wang Yu smiled and appeared behind the mountain demon. He stretched out his arms and pushed the big guy down. That's right, it was pushing. The mountain demon's attack power wasn't that great, but it was extremely destructive to equipment. Wang Yu was so afraid of this bear that he decided to use his hooligan moves. After dealing with the mountain demon, Wang Yu took out a rope and went down. He shouted to the lone traveler, grab the rope, I'll pull you up. The vines were already on the verge of collapsing. Putting aside the question of how long they could last, with the speed of the lone wanderer, the mountain demons who had climbed up the mountain would have already killed a few waves. Wang Yu was not confident that he could stop the mountain demons that were wreaking havoc everywhere. The lone wanderer did not say anything. He let go of the vines and grabbed the rope. Wang Yu, who was on the cliff, pulled him up in a few moves. At the edge of the cliff, there seemed to be only these two monsters. The lone traveler pointed to a place not far away and said, "The dagger is over there." "What?" Wang Yu opened up the map and looked at the coordinate. As expected, the coordinates were right on the edge of the cliff. Then, Wang Yu followed the direction the lone wanderer pointed, and walked a few steps forward along the cliff. He discovered a dark purple mass. He could faintly see a dagger stuck in the ground. "You have good eyesight," Wang Yu said in surprise. Thieves only had night vision. The lighting on the mountaintop was very good, so the lone wanderer's field of vision was about the same as Wang Yu's. However, Wang Yu was used to being here for many years, so his vision was more focused. Therefore, compared to normal players, it was easier for him to notice some details. However, the lone wanderer actually noticed the dagger that Wang Yu didn't see. This was a bit surprising to Wang Yu. "Ugh!" The lone wanderer's expression changed slightly. He quickly said, "It's a coincidence." "Oh!" Wang Yu knew that some special items could increase one's vision. Looking at the lone wanderer's expression, it seemed that he did not want to talk about it. Therefore, Wang Yu did not pursue the matter. Instead, he urged, "Hurry up and pull out the dagger. I still need to level up." "Okay." The lone wanderer replied and reached his hand into the black fog. As soon as his arm touched the black fog, the hexagram on his arm lit up. Then, the black fog gradually dissipated. After the black fog dissipated, Wang Yu discovered that the place where the dagger was searching was a strange magic circle. There were traces of cracks on the magic circle where the dagger was inserted. Wisps of black smoke floated out of the cracks and floated towards the front of the sunset peak. "Bro, will you be okay if you pull out the dagger?" Wang Yu asked worriedly. Hearing Wang Yu's words, the lone wanderer gave Wang Yu a strange look. "Bro, this is a game. What does it have to do with us if something happens?" According to a normal player's thinking, it would be fine as long as they followed the system's instructions to complete the quest. Who would think about what would happen next? Wang Yu was a complete noob in the game. His mind could not change so quickly. It was no wonder that he would be looked down upon by others for asking such a question. "Ugh," Wang Yu said awkwardly. "All right, continue." The lone wanderer lowered his head. He grabbed the dagger by the hilt and pulled it out. After the dagger was pulled out, the magic array beneath the dagger began to crack. In the end, the magic array shattered, revealing a small, black box. Seeing the small black box, the lone wanderer threw the dagger into his bag and reached out to grab the box. At that moment, Wang Yu suddenly shouted, "Get down! There's someone behind you!" As soon as Wang Yu finished speaking, the lone wanderer hurriedly got down on the ground. At the same time, a tall and thin masked assassin appeared behind the lone wanderer. The assassin raised his dagger and was about to stab him in the back. Lone Ranger lay on the ground and avoided being hit in his vitals. When the assassin saw that he didn't kill his opponent in one hit, he reached out to grab the black box. System notification: your party has been attacked by one-page book. You have 180 seconds to defend yourself. A PK notification? It's a player. As Wang Yusue spoke, he dashed forward and swung his fist at the guy named One Page Book. One Page Book moved as if he had eyes on the back of his head. He blocked the attack with his dagger. This dagger was very exquisite. It just happened to block Wang Yu's fist. Huh! Wang Yu was surprised. His right hand gripped Tiger Claw and grabbed One Page Book's wrist. His left hand formed the shape of a crane's beak, and he stabbed at One Page Book's back. One-page book's right hand also formed the shape of a crane's beak. He pulled back and broke free from Wang Yu's grasp. At the same time, he flipped forward and was forced back several meters. Wang Yu took the opportunity to wave his left hand and used the cloud-capturing hand to grab the black box. One-page book's face was covered, so Wang Yu couldn't see his expression. However, his eyes were filled with surprise. "How did you get left crane headbutt?" A clear voice came from the direction of the assassin. Wang Yu and the lone traveler were both stunned. They took another look at the chest of the assassin, then looked at each other in disbelief. They said in unison, "It's actually a woman? That's impossible." "Humph!" One-page book coldly snorted. He activated quickness and charged at Wang Yu with his dagger in hand. Wang Yu took a step back and leaned to the side. He grabbed One-page book's arm with his left hand and lifted One-page book's chin with his right. Then, he threw him off the cliff. Chapter 436. Seeing this scene, the lone wanderer's hair stood on end. You threw her down? The lone wanderer pointed at Wang Yu and asked. Seeing the lone wanderer's reaction, Wang Yu asked, "Isn't she an enemy? Is there something wrong with throwing her down?" In Wang Yu's eyes, there wasn't much difference between throwing someone down a cliff and being beaten to death with his fist. "She's a girl," the lone wanderer exclaimed. Wang Yu said, "I know. It's because she's a girl that I didn't beat her to death. Do you like to see me beat up girls that much?" After being defended by Wang Yu, the lone wanderer felt that Wang Yu's words made sense. He was speechless. But then he thought about it. What was going on? How could falling to death and being beaten to death be the same? In the game, even if you were stabbed to death with a knife, it was just a matter of one stab. Throwing someone down a mountain to their death required a process. Falling from such a high place and landing on the ground before dying, this feeling was definitely more satisfying than bungee jumping with your rope off. In any case, after Wang Yu climbed up the cliff, he threw two monsters and a player down. In the eyes of the lone wanderer, this kind of behavior was completely insane. The lone wanderer subconsciously took 2 steps away from Wang Yu. Wang Yu had just thrown 3 people down. Perhaps he was addicted to throwing himself down. Seeing the lone wanderer's complicated expression, Wang Yu smiled and ignored him. At this moment, Wang Yu suddenly received a system notification. System notification. The sealed dagger has been moved. The dark altar has been opened. You have received the mandatory quest, the altar on the mountain peak. Quest rank S. Current segment demonic energy overflow. Show the heart of darkness to the trainer. He will guide you on the next step. Quest notification. The overflow of demonic energy has caused the Sunset Peak monsters to become abnormal. Currently, the demonized monsters have lost the support of the Heart of Darkness and are surrounding the peak. Players, please leave quickly. Note: the Heart of Darkness is the source of darkness. Due to player accidentally breaking the seal, the altar has reappeared. You must do everything in your power to remedy the situation. If the quest fails or the Heart of Death drops, player level -5, Yu Huiqing honor points -1000. After the system notification, the name of the small black box in Wang Yu's bag changed to Heart of Darkness. There was a small line of words at the bottom: 100% drop upon death. Motherf *Ker. What a scam. After reading the quest notification, Wang Yu felt bitter in his heart. If he'd known that this thing's setting was so despicable, he would have let EU take it away. Now, the system was determined to screw him over. At the same time, Wang Yu heard a commotion not far away. Looking over, she saw a group of monsters rushing up from the foot of the mountain. The setting sun celestial eagles and Gobi blood eagles at the front were like locusts, covering the sky. Wang Yu frowned and took out the bundle of rope. It was actually the flying dragon rope. Because he couldn't recast it, he could only use it as a rope. Quick, tie the rope to yourself. We have to go down quickly, Wang Yu said anxiously to the lone traveler. The lone traveler said, Why are you in such a hurry? Oh right, where's the small box? Give it to me. Seeing the monsters getting closer, Wang Yu pointed down the mountain and interrupted the lone traveler. Don't you see the monsters over there? The lone traveler looked back and was shocked. What? What's going on? Wang Yu said, You pulled out your dagger and caused trouble. Quick, I'll throw you down. At the same time, Wang Yu was puzzled. Did this guy not receive the quest notification? When the lone traveler heard that Wang Yu was going to throw him down, his face turned ashen. He hurriedly said, There are vines, I'll just climb down. Then you'll be bitten to death by the monsters. As he said this, Wang Yu tied the rope around the lone traveler's body. He then grabbed the lone traveler's collar and threw him down. Ah! Iron ox, The lone traveler cried out in pain as he fell down. Wang Yu's rope was only 30 meters long. It was only a third of the height of the cliff. After throwing the lone traveler down, Wang Yu also jumped down. When the lone traveler was a few meters above the ground, Wang Yu stabbed his sword into the mountain wall. The two of them stopped and hung on the cliff. At this time, the monsters at the top of the mountain had already flown to the edge of the cliff. Wang Yu loosened her grip and let go of the rope, allowing the lone wanderer to fall. Then, Wang Yu sheathed her sword and jumped down. When she was still a few meters away from the ground, she used night jump and landed beside the lone wanderer. At this time, the lone traveler was lying on the ground. His breathing was weak and his face was purple. Go, go! Wang Yu urged. Scram! The lone traveler held his throat and roared. It was obvious that he was terrified. Wang Yu said in disdain, No way, just a few meters and you're already like this? In the system settings, a person would only die if they fell from a height of 20 meters. A few meters would at most cause them to lose a bit of health. Seeing the lone traveler like this, if he didn't turn into a white light, Wang Yu would have thought that he was dead. The lone traveler said angrily, Do you know how to play with ropes? Of course I do. I'm proficient in all kinds of martial arts. Wang Yu said shamelessly. Then who taught you to tie ropes? The lone traveler was about to go crazy. Wang Yu's rope had almost strangled him to death. This made the lone wanderer deeply understand that in the game, being hacked to death with a sword was the most satisfying way to die. Wang Yu's face turned red as he explained, You don't understand. In martial arts, tying ropes is a killing technique. This is my first time saving someone. Actually, other than tying shoelaces, Wang Yu only knew how to tie rope. Humph. The lone traveler, who had already climbed up from the ground, snorted and didn't say anything. As the two of them spoke, the densely packed bird monsters circled around the top of the mountain before diving down. Wang Yu and the lone traveler were shocked and immediately retreated. However, no matter how fast they ran, they couldn't outrun those with wings. Where can we run? Seeing so many bird monsters, the lone traveler was in despair. The lone traveler was a thief. If it were any other monster, even if the lone traveler couldn't outrun them, he could still use stealth to avoid them. However, the sky full of bird monsters had insight. Where could he run? In the next moment, the bird monsters had already flown behind the two of them. When Wang Yu saw such a dense group of monsters, he couldn't help but feel his scalp go numb. If he ran, he definitely wouldn't be able to outrun them. If he died, it was even more impossible. Let's not talk about how difficult it was to go from level 30 to level 35. Just these 1,000 honor points were enough for Wang Yu to turn from a hero to a heinous criminal. Chapter 437. Thinking of this, Wang Yu asked the lone wanderer, Bro, do you want to fall to your death or be bitten to death by the monsters? I don't want to. The lone wanderer answered honestly. Then I'm sorry. As Wang Yu spoke, he punched the lone wanderer's head. The lone wanderer was smashed into white light, and the quest dagger fell to the ground. The lone wanderer blinked and appeared at the resurrection point. After 3 seconds of confusion, the lone wanderer flew into a rage. F***ck, why did this B****starred kill me? At this moment, the lone wanderer received a message from Wang Yu. Wait for me at the resurrection point. After killing the lone Jianghu man, the bird monsters chasing after Wang Yu had already blocked the entire narrow mountain road. The sky was also densely packed with them. Wang Yu glanced at the bird monsters and pounced forward, jumping off the cliff. This cliff was the canyon with the drawbridge. Looking down, it was impossible to see the bottom. In this kind of terrain, unless it was a mage-type player who had learned flying spells like Featherfall, other classes would basically die if they jumped. Of course, players like Wang Yu who had teleportation skills could also try, but whether they had the courage and reflexes to do so was another matter. In fact, this cliff was only 10 meters wide. With Wang Yu's ability, jumping to the other side was no problem at all. However, these bird monsters could fly, so jumping to the other side was no different from not jumping at all. Jumping down was different. These setting sun celestial eagles and gobi blood eagles had been demonized. Their bodies were much larger than those on the Sunset Plateau at the foot of the mountain. Their wingspans were 4 to 5 meters wide. Birds of prey like eagles needed space to dive. The canyon was only 10 meters wide, so they could not even hover. If the system was really shameless enough to give these bird monsters the ability to fly like a helicopter, Wang Yu would have to accept his fate. Fortunately, no matter how shameless the system was, it was not shameless to this extent. After Wang Yu jumped off the cliff, the bird monsters lost their target. They circled around in the sky for a while before flying back to the top of the mountain. At this time, Wang Yu, who had fallen down the cliff, received the system notification that the monsters had retreated. Wang Yu breathed a sigh of relief. Damn it! This quest was simply inhumane. There were so many flying monsters chasing after players. Moreover, the penalty for failure was so severe. Wasn't this just forcing players onto the path of death? Fortunately, it was Wang Yu who accepted the mission this time. If it were anyone else who accepted this mission, they would probably die. Even a mage with the ability to fly would have a hard time jumping off the cliff when surrounded by so many flying monsters. After all, a mage with the ability to fly with the Featherfall spell would not only be able to float, but their movement speed was also quite impressive. Spring Soar was a good example of this. When he was being chased, he would not use the ability to fly until he reached the bottom of the wall, as he was afraid of being shot down by the enemy. The scenery at the bottom of the cliff was horrible. There were bones everywhere. From the system's notification, Wang Yu knew that this map was called Boneyard. Seeing the ground full of bones, Wang Yu was afraid that the system would do something again. Without another word, he turned around and ran out. He only relaxed when he ran to the familiar map of the Sunset Mountains. Half an hour later, Wang Yu finally returned to Yu Huiqing. The lone wanderer had been waiting for a long time. What took you so long? Where's the dagger? The wanderer asked impatiently. He was killed for no reason. No one would be happy. Wang Yu took out the dagger and said, I had to get rid of those monsters. Get rid of those monsters? The wanderer was stunned when he heard this. After a while, the wanderer asked in disbelief, You said you got rid of those bird monsters? How did you do it? At that time, the situation was urgent. The wanderer didn't have time to count how many monsters there were in the sky. However, there were at least 1,000 birds that covered the sky. There were so many bird monsters and they could fly. Although flying monsters weren't the most powerful, they were always the most difficult to deal with. With thousands of bird monsters chasing him, the wanderer thought that Wang Yu had been killed. Who knew that Wang Yu had survived? This guy's ability to escape was terrifying. Wang Yu said truthfully, I jumped off the cliff. They couldn't fly down. Oh. The wanderer did remember that Wang Yu had asked him how he wanted to die. It turned out that Wang Yu had already thought of jumping off the cliff. The wanderer had seen Wang Yu's rock climbing skills and knew that jumping off the cliff would give Wang Yu a higher chance of survival. Even so, the wanderer still felt that Wang Yu was too strange. He didn't play by the rules. It was as if the system's rules didn't work on him. What about the heart of darkness? Give it to me too. The lone traveler looked at Wang Yu in surprise and said, Heart of darkness? Wang Yu asked. Didn't you only want the dagger? For this heart of darkness, Wang Yu was forced to jump off the cliff by the monster. How could he give it to him so easily? The wanderer said, The heart of darkness is also my quest item. Wang Yu said, Our contract quest didn't say anything about the heart of darkness. Right, how do you know that thing is called the heart of darkness? Wang Yu wasn't a fool. If the wanderer didn't say anything about the heart of darkness, it would be fine. Once the wanderer mentioned the heart of darkness, Wang Yu immediately reacted. This thing was picked up by him, and the name was only shown after he received the quest. The wanderer didn't seem to have received the quest, so how did he know the name of the heart of darkness? Thinking about the wanderer's sudden appearance and his familiarity with the back mountain, Wang Yu suddenly felt that he had been tricked by this brat. Wang Yu's guess was correct. The wanderer's main goal was the Heart of Darkness. Heart of Darkness was a non-hidden quest that assassins could learn from assassin mentors after reaching level 25. Due to the complexity of this quest, it was impossible to complete at this stage of the game. Moreover, the penalty for failing the quest was very high, and the rewards were unknown. So, even an expert assassin like Baiming Yu couldn't help but feel powerless. The first part of the Heart of Darkness quest was to find the assassin who sealed the Heart of Darkness and break the seal on the dagger. Just this quest alone was enough to stump a lot of people. The wanderer accidentally bumped into this NPC. After receiving the dagger quest, he found out that this NPC was the quest NPC for the Heart of Darkness. Actually, when the wanderer first found Wang Yu, he didn't think about the Heart of Darkness. He only wanted Wang Yu to lure away the monster on the drawbridge, and then he could remove the dagger himself. Who would have thought that Wang Yu was so strong, and he was also a solo player? So, the wanderer wanted to obtain the Heart of Darkness. Chapter 438. This is an assassin's quest item. You won't be able to use it. I can pay for it. Name your price. The lone wanderer hesitated for a moment before speaking to Wang Yu. The lone wanderer didn't know that Wang Yu had received a quest. Seeing that Wang Yu wasn't willing to hand over the Heart of Darkness, he thought that Wang Yu felt that the quest was too risky and the reward was too low. The lone wanderer didn't lack money, so he wasn't afraid of Wang Yu asking for an exorbitant price. He directly asked Wang Yu to name his price. Wang Yu displayed the quest item with a pained expression and said gloomily, Do you think I want this thing? Wang Yu not only felt pained that he had been scammed by the system, but also that he had lost a chance to earn money. F***CK. When the lone wanderer saw Wang Yu's quest introduction, his scalp went numb. Losing the quest item was considered a quest failure. Failure penalty was -5 levels and -1,000 honor point. How was this a F***king quest? It was simply a huge scam. Even if the lone wanderer dared to do this quest, Wang Yu probably wouldn't be willing to sell it. Not to mention how hard it was to level up by 5 levels, 1,000 honor points wasn't something money could buy. Moreover, no matter how rich the lone wanderer was, he wouldn't spend it on a quest with unknown rewards. Nyo-go, my condolences. The lone wanderer patted Wang Yu's shoulder as he consoled him. The first round of the quest was already this scam. Who knew what the later quests would be like? The lone wanderer was more glad that he didn't go for the Heart of Darkness first. Wang Yu sighed and said, You've got the dagger. You don't need me to follow you to turn in the quest, right? That won't be necessary. The lone wanderer said. The thief was a profession that could go into stealth. In this era where there were no anti-stealth skills, the thief profession wasn't afraid of being chased. Alright, then you go. I'll go turn in the heart of darkness first. Wang Yu said helplessly. You really plan on doing this mission? The lone wanderer was shocked. The Heart of Darkness quest was not something that could be accepted at this stage of the game. The quest also did not have a time limit. According to the loner's train of thought, he should at least wait until his level was higher before considering it. Who knew that Wang Yu would want to do it now? But I can't bring this with me every day. Wang Yu was helpless. There were dangers everywhere in the game, and no one could guarantee immortality. Wang Yu didn't have that confidence either. If he died one day, wouldn't it be a huge loss? You can store it in the warehouse, right? The lone traveler suggested. I can't. Wang Yu wanted to cry. If he could just throw it into the warehouse, he wouldn't be so depressed. When the lone traveler heard this, he said gloatingly, TSK, then I can't help you. Wang Yu really didn't want to pay attention to this guy who was watching him make a fool of himself. He minded his own business and walked towards the alley where Hermit was. The lone traveler followed closely behind Wang Yu without saying a word. When they reached the alley, Wang Yu suddenly turned around and asked the lone traveler, Why haven't you turned in the quest yet? There's no rush to turn in the quest. I'm very curious about what your next quest will be, the lone traveler said with a smile. Wang Yu said, You can't help. The first round of the quest was already this difficult. Even Wang Yu felt that it was a little tricky. What could a level 25 thief like the lone traveler do? You're thinking too much. I just want to see how unlucky you are, the lone traveler said with a smile. Other than running around the map, the lone traveler's biggest hobby was to watch the fun. Wang Yu was furious, damn you. After walking into the alley, Wang Yu woke up Hermit and handed him the Heart of Darkness. He then asked respectfully, Teacher, I accidentally obtained this item. May I ask what it is? After seeing the Heart of Darkness, Old Man Hermit's usually sleepy face suddenly became serious. Where did you get this from? Old Man Hermit asked in surprise. On Sunset Peak. Wang Yu said truthfully. Who would have thought that this Heart of Darkness would see the light of day again? The hermit sighed and said, This is the heart of the sixth apostle. Back then, I sealed it and gave it to the Thieves' Guild. In the end, an expert from the Thieves' Guild coveted the power of darkness and stole it. Since then, this Heart of Darkness has disappeared without a trace. I didn't expect it to be in Sunset City. Then what should I do with this Heart of Darkness now? The Heart of Darkness has an immeasurable power of darkness. This power can demonize monsters outside the city, making them violent and powerful. If it is placed inside the city, it will also demonize the citizens. The best way is to seal it again. How can I seal it? Wang Yu continued to ask. The setting sun roulette that sealed this Heart of Darkness has also been stolen. If I want to seal this Heart of Darkness, I'll need to find the assassin who stole this Heart of Darkness back then, Leon. System notification. Quest changed to the second part of the altar at the top of the mountain, wanted assassin. Quest rank S. Find the assassin who stole the Heart of Darkness, Leon, and find the whereabouts of the Sunset Roulette. Assassin Leon? After receiving the quest, Wang Yu's heart trembled. At the same time, he thought of his own contract quest. So the person who sent the solitary traveler to retrieve the dagger was the person who stole the Heart of Darkness. The solitary traveler wasn't surprised when he heard Hermit's words. After all, Leon was the target of the first part of the Thief Guild's Heart of Darkness quest. However, he didn't expect the assassin, Leon, to be someone who coveted the power of darkness. After walking out of the alley, the solitary traveler asked Wang Yu, Our quest NPC is the same person. We won't have the same quest, right? After walking out of the alley, the solitary traveler asked Wang Yu, We probably won't have the same quest, but you will have a part in it. Although the Heart of Darkness was in Wang Yu's hands, the dagger that sealed the Heart of Darkness was pulled out by the solitary traveler. At the very least, he was an accomplice. When the solitary traveler heard this, he was shocked. Don't mess around. I'm not doing the same quest as you. In Rebirth, the quest rank and reward were directly linked. Although the S-rank quest was quite tempting, the solitary traveler wasn't interested in this quest at all. Hee. Wang Yu laughed and didn't explain. It seemed that the solitary traveler was used to paying people to do quests. He didn't know much about the deceptive tricks of the game's NPCs. The Sunset Wilderness was a level 30 monster area in the west of Yu Huicheng City. There were many beast-type monsters like the Sunset Cheetah and the Sunset Tiger. These monsters were very fast and had very low HP. They were the favorite of warriors. Wang Yu hadn't been here many times before. The wilderness was filled with warrior players who were around level 25 in groups of 2s and 3s. The lone wanderer led Wang Yu through many twists and turns before they arrived at a very remote corner in the depths of the wilderness. Chapter 439. The map of Rebirth was huge. Finding an NPC in 300 main cities was like looking for a needle in a haystack, not to mention a thief hiding in such a remote place. It was no wonder that no one dared to accept an S-rank quest. After seeing Assassin Leon, the Lone Ranger took out a dagger and handed it over. This is the dagger you wanted. Put it there. Leon raised his head and looked at the Lone Ranger, indicating for him to throw the dagger aside. He then took out a skill book and handed it to the Lone Ranger. At the same time, the contract quest was completed. Wang Yu's bag had an extra 500 gold coins. Second jump, rare skill. Class requirement, assassin. Although other classes, aside from pugilist classes, did not have a bonus to their attack power when using jumping skills were still very useful for players of any class. Hence, equipment that increased jumping skills were very valuable. Even a jumping skill like second jump was worth far more than 500 gold. It seemed that Lone Wanderer had not suffered a loss in this quest. The assassin, Leon's eyes never left Wang Yu for even a second. After the lone traveler handed in the mission, Leon stared at Wang Yu and said, "I can feel the aura of darkness on you. Can you tell me why?" An NPC taking the initiative to talk to a player definitely meant that there was a quest. Hearing Leon's words, Wang Yu took out the Heart of Darkness and said, "This." Wang Yu had only said 2 words when he suddenly flipped his hand and grabbed the Heart of Darkness. At the same time, he stretched his right leg forward and waved his hand in the air. An assassin was slapped out of the air. That assassin's original goal was to snatch the Heart of Darkness from Wang Yu's hands. In the end, he was pushed by Wang Yu again. Wang Yu even used a wrench under her feet. The assassin cried out and fell to the ground. "Why is it you again?" When the Lone Ranger heard the assassin's voice, he immediately recognized the assassin. It was the girl who snatched the Heart of Darkness on the mountain top, Yi Yeshu. Although Yi Yeshu had covered her face, the girl's body was flatter than a man's. It was hard not to recognize her. When Assassin Leon saw Wang Yu take out the Heart of Darkness, his eyes lit up. Then they dimmed. At this time, Wang Yu and Yi Yeshu exchanged blows again. Yi Yeshu supported himself with one arm and did a forward quick recover. Then, his left hand grabbed the crane's beak and flicked it upwards. The dagger in his right hand rested on his left arm, and he kicked at Wang Yu with both legs. This was the same move Wang Yu had used on Yeshu on the mountain, the left crane overhead hand. Wang Yu unhurriedly extended his right hand and gently placed it on Yeshu's crane beak. Yeshu's dagger in his right hand suddenly stabbed towards Wang Yu's throat. Wang Yu's left tiger claw was already ready for action. When he saw the dagger coming, he grabbed Yeshu's wrist and threw Yeshu to the ground. Fortunately, Wang Yu hadn't used any skills. Moreover, the attack power of his throwing skill wasn't high. Otherwise, Pagebook would have died at Wang Yu's hands again. The lone wanderer stared at the 2 players, dumbfounded. He didn't know what to say anymore. Although the lone wanderer was a layman and couldn't understand what Yi Yeshu and Wang Yu were doing, it wasn't hard to tell that Yi Yeshu's mechanics and techniques were amazing. Take the move he had used on Wang Yu as an example. Yi Yeshu's first move was quick and nimble, and his dagger was cunning and ruthless. Any other player wouldn't have been able to dodge the attack. However, not only had Wang Yu dodged the attack, but he had also thrown his opponent to the ground with a backhand. This kind of technique was simply unheard of. Yi Yeshu, who had been thrown to the ground, refused to give up. Just as he was about to swing his dagger at Wang Yu again, the hitman assassin flashed behind Yi Yeshu and struck the back of his head with gouge. A stun symbol appeared above Yi Yeshu's head. "Don't fight pointlessly in front of me." Yi Yeshu coldly glared at Yi Yeshu. He jabbed his dagger into Yi Yeshu, and Yi Yeshu was sealed. "Humph!" Yi Yeshu coldly snorted and said to Wang Yu, "Do you dare to find a place to fight me again?" Wang Yu smiled bitterly. "You won't be able to fight me even if you fight me 10 more times. Maybe your grandfather will come." Yi Yeshu was furious. You're too rude." Those who practiced martial arts valued seniority the most. Wang Yu had elevated himself to Yi Yeshu's grandfather. If Yi Yeshu hadn't been sealed, he would have fought Wang Yu to the death. Wang Yu chuckled, but didn't explain. After all, there was too much of a difference between them. If word got out, he would be laughed at for bullying a junior. Assassin Leon ignored the two of them. He coldly stared at Wang Yu and asked in a deep voice, "Was that the Heart of Darkness just now?" "Yes, it was the Heart of Darkness. I heard you have an item to seal it. Can you lend it to me?" Wang Yu replied. Assassin Leon gave Wang Yu a meaningful look. He coldly asked, "It's a powerful force. Since you've already unsealed it, why seal it again?" System notification. Quest changed to the 3rd round of the altar at the top of the mountain. Power's choice. Choose power. Absorb the power of the Heart of Darkness with Assassin Leon's help to obtain the Apostle class, Slaughterblade. Choose justice. Ask Assassin Leon for the whereabouts of the Setting Sun's roulette and seal the Heart of Darkness. After completing this quest, you will receive an additional 1000 Light Faction honor point. Power or justice? Another choice quest. Wang Yu had made this kind of unlucky choice before. At the same time, Wang Yu knew that the bigger the reward, the bigger the trap. The Apostle class was one of the Dark Faction's hidden classes. Just like the Light Faction's Hero class, they were both unique. This kind of temptation was unprecedented, but Wang Yu was very calm. First of all, Wang Yu was in the neutral faction. If he chose the Apostle class, he would definitely fall into the Dark Faction. Hermit didn't have any objections to the neutral faction, but he had a lot of objections to the Dark Faction. It was very likely that the moment Wang Yu accepted the quest, the old man would chase after Wang Yu throughout the server. Hanging on to a God-tier NPC enemy when he was only level 30 wasn't a very smart move. Secondly, the Slaughterblade's corresponding class was Thief. Wang Yu's real identity was a martial artist, so he was naturally more interested in the Grandmaster of Combat's hidden class. As for Thief, this kind of class with the word Thief in it, Wang Yu wouldn't even consider it. Without a doubt, this hidden class that was incomparably tempting to others didn't exist in Wang Yu's eyes at all. So, Wang Yu chose justice without hesitation. Compared to great power, I'm more willing to believe in my own path of justice. Wang Yu expressionlessly recited the system's idiom. Chapter 440. Lost it? Then what do we do? Wang Yu asked the hitman. Wang Yu wasn't worried that he wouldn't be able to complete the quest. After all, this was the system's arrangement. Since the Setting Sun's roulette was lost, the hitman had to have some other way. The hitman gave Wang Yu a meaningful look and said, "Young man, don't think that others will do anything for you for free. Don't forget, I was the one who gave you this Heart of Darkness." Wang Yu was stunned when he heard the hitman's words. Strictly speaking, the hitman wasn't a good person. He had even tried to absorb the heart of darkness's power. How could he completely trust the hitman's words? Seeing Wang Yu's expression, the hitman continued, "When I was young, I was also obsessed with power. The years of wandering have made me grow a lot. I'm old now, and I don't want to live in fear anymore. Do you understand what I mean?" Wang Yu nodded and said, "As long as you tell me the method to seal the heart of darkness, I should be able to make up for my mistakes." The hitman smiled and said, "Of course. But how am I going to live the rest of my life? Can't you see that I can't even pick up a knife?" The hitman glanced at the sealing dagger that the lone wanderer had tossed to the ground. Wang Yu's face darkened. "Good, this is blatantly asking for money. What do you mean you can't pick up a knife?" Yi Yeshu was clearly quite nimble when he was dealing with him. "How much?" Wang Yu asked. 500. The hitman raised his hand and gestured. F***ck. Wang Yu took out his wallet and tossed it over. This system really was a leech. In the blink of an eye, it had completely exploited him. Beside him, Yi Yeshu and the lone wanderer were dumbfounded. They asked, dumbfounded, "Are you really doing a quest? Don't you know that these NPCs are shameless?" Wang Yu was also slightly surprised. These two fellows were already at this level, especially Pagebook, who was already level 30. Did they not know that NPCs could be bribed with money? The solitary Jianghu traveler said, "Isn't it because I don't have enough favorable impression points?" "Yes, if you give them money, they will have a good impression of you," Wang Yu said truthfully. F***ck. The lone wanderer was dumbfounded. These NPCs were too practical. To think that he had run around like a dog to earn favorability for a few quests in the past. It turned out that the way to increase favorability was actually so simple. The assassin smiled as he put away the bag of coins. He pointed at the sealing dagger on the ground and said, "There is a burial ground at the foot of Sunset Peak. There is a white bone altar there. Place the heart of darkness on the altar's altar and stab the dagger into it." So simple? Wang Yu was in disbelief. An S-rank mission actually had such a process. It was too sloppy. Also, the name of the mission was clearly Altar on the Mountain Top, so why was the altar at the bottom of the valley? The assassin said calmly, "This mission's difficulty has increased because of me." Oh. Wang Yu was skeptical. He walked up and picked up the sealing dagger on the ground. At this moment, the assassin suddenly pointed at the solitary Jianghu traveler and said, "The dagger must be stabbed in by him." After the assassin said this, the solitary Jianghu traveler also received the same mission as Wang Yu. "Me?" The solitary Jianghu traveler looked at this mission with such a ridiculous penalty. "What does it have to do with me? You pulled out the dagger? What about me?" Yi Yeshu's expression was ugly. It seemed that this girl had also received a mission. "You opened the altar." "Altar?" Wang Yu and the solitary Jianghu traveler looked at Yi Yeshu strangely. "Humph." Yi Yeshu snorted coldly. "When I got there first, there was an altar there. I was the one who opened it. Before I could pull out the dagger, you guys came up. No wonder there were only 2 monsters on the mountain top, and I didn't see the altar in the mission. So you got there first." When Wang Yu first climbed up the cliff, he was confused as to why there were only 2 monsters in such a large space. It turned out that this girl had arrived earlier than the 2 of them. The 2 mountain demons must have respawned later. At this moment, Wang Yu finally realized what was going on. The system was really set up to be responsible for every wrong done. Whoever did wrong had to pay for it. The assassin urged, "All right, you guys go quickly. The power of the heart of darkness is spreading. The longer you delay, the more troublesome it will be." "Oh, okay, got it." Wang Yu and the others quickly ran in the direction of Sunset Peak. The solitary Jianghu traveler was quite excited. He didn't expect the last part of the mission to be so easy. Although the penalty for failure was scary, how could they fail such a simple mission? It was an S-rank mission, after all. The reward must be very tempting. At the very least, it would be better than the reward for the hidden profession. Iyeshu couldn't hide the excitement in her eyes. This girl was a normal player, and naturally, she couldn't resist the temptation of an S-rank mission. Although the last part of the mission was easy, Wang Yu had the heart of darkness in his hands. Without him, they had to put aside the grudge of being thrown off the mountain by Wang Yu. Only Wang Yu was thinking about the assassin's words over and over again. His expression became more and more serious. The boneyard was the map that Wang Yu had found when he jumped off the cliff. It was in the Sunset Mountains. The Sunset Mountains and the Sunset Wilderness were on the opposite side of Sunset City. The distance was very far, and the three of them weren't slow. They still ran for nearly 30 minutes. When they returned to the boneyard, Wang Yu felt that the atmosphere was even more strange. The skeletons on the ground felt as if they could come back to life at any time. The map of the boneyard was long and narrow according to the cliff. The three of them followed the map all the way to the end, but the skeletons didn't move. This made Wang Yu even more suspicious. Wang Yu had done an S-rank mission more than once, but it had never gone so smoothly. Wang Yu didn't think that the system would make this S-rank mission so easy. After all, in the first part of the mission, Wang Yu had been chased by monsters and had nowhere to run. How could there be no monsters here? I found the altar. You over there, quickly put the heart of darkness on it. As Wang Yu thought about it, he suddenly heard Iyeshu's voice. Looking in the direction of the voice, Wang Yu saw the so-called altar under Iyeshu's feet. The altar wasn't big. It was only 2 meters square. It was a circular platform made of white bones. On top of the platform there was a white bone platform the size of a bowl. It seemed to be the sacrificial platform. No rush. Wang Yu looked at the altar, waved his hand and said, "Don't you think this altar is strange?" Chapter 441. Who cares if it's weird or not? Just do what the quest says. Do you want to keep the reward all to yourself? Iyeshu said unhappily. Iyeshu didn't mind that Wang Yu had killed him, but that was for the sake of the quest reward. He wouldn't be nice to Wang Yu right now. Yan Yogo. Didn't the system say to put it up? When he heard Iyeshu's words, solitary Jiang Huku, who was used to eating alone, felt that Iyeshu's words were reasonable. After all, this guy had always regarded Wang Yu as his own kind. With Wang Yu's temper, she naturally wouldn't care if the two of them doubted her. Instead, she stared at the two of them and asked, "Have the two of you done an S-rank mission before?" "No." They shook their heads and asked, "Even if we haven't done it before, we've seen it before. Does it have anything to do with the quest?" "Do you know that an S-rank quest can't be completed?" Wang Yu asked again. Hearing that, the two of them were taken aback. The level and difficulty of a quest were set by the game. It was common knowledge. Even a newbie like Wang Yu knew about it, so how could they not know? If an S-rank quest can't be completed, do you think it's that easy? Wang Yu asked. Are you saying that the heart of darkness isn't here? Iyeshu asked. Yes. The heart of darkness should be put back on the altar on the cliff. The altar on the cliff? Iyeshu was confused. We just took it down. What's the point of putting it back? Who told you to retrieve the heart of darkness? Wang Yu asked the two of them. The assassin mentor. Who told you to take the dagger? The assassin Leon, that's it. Have you forgotten that this assassin is the one who stole the heart of darkness? He's not a good person at all. Wang Yu said. That's right. Assassins are actually villains. The two of them had been following the quest prompts to complete the quest, but they had actually neglected the fact that the assassin was the antagonist. After the assassin stole the Dark Heart, there was no news of it. The Assassin's Guild didn't know that the Dark Heart had been sealed, so they issued a quest to find it. The Heart of Darkness might have been sealed by the assassin Leon at the top of the mountain for some special reason. That was why he didn't dare to take the dagger himself. He didn't even dare to touch the dagger that sealed the heart of darkness. From this, it could be seen that this altar was not used to seal the heart of darkness. According to this logic, the white bone altar was most likely used to help the assassin, Leon, with his evil deeds. Thinking of this, the solitary Jiang Hu said, "In that case, only after we receive the sealing mission and reseal the heart of darkness will this mission be considered completed?" "Yes." Wang Yu nodded. "Damn it, going in circles. Is that even possible?" "The more impossible it is, the more possible it is," Wang Yu said. A level quest was originally an impossible mission. If they wanted to complete it, of course they had to do it in the opposite direction. The solitary Jiang Hu hesitated and said, "Okay, we can try." Yi Yeshu thought for a while and said, "I'll believe you this time. If it doesn't work, we'll come back. Let's see what tricks you can play then." "Okay." Wang Yu laughed. After they agreed, the three of them were about to return to the sunset peak when the bones all over the valley suddenly moved. "Oh no, run out!" Seeing this scene, Wang Yu was shocked. He hurriedly called for the two of them to run out of the burial ground. When they were less than 10 meters away from the entrance of the valley, all the bones on the ground had drilled out. The valley was filled with a skeleton army. The path in front of Wang Yu and the other two was also tightly packed with skeletons. Skeleton Soldier, LV 30, HP, 5000 MP, 2000 skills, / Fear Skeleton Mage, LV 30, HP, 2000 MP, 5000 skills, Fireball, Icicle. These skeleton soldiers' levels weren't high and they didn't have much HP. However, they had the advantage in numbers. There were hundreds of skeletons in less than 10 meters. It was enough to show the density of the monsters. If these monsters weren't already dead, they would have been crushed to death. What do we do?" Seeing so many skeletons, the solitary Jiang Hu's face turned pale. The solitary Jiang Hu was only a LV 25 thief. His body was relatively weak. Facing thousands of monsters that were only 5 levels higher than him, the solitary Jiang Hu knew better than anyone else what his chances of survival were. If it was a normal day, he would die. He would only lose 10% of his experience. However, he had a quest. If he died, he would lose 5 levels and 1,000 honor points. If he really died, the solitary Jiang Hu would probably delete his account. Page Book's performance wasn't that great. Although her level wasn't high, she was still a girl. Women were naturally afraid of skeletons. In the face of such a dense army of skeletons, Page Book's legs were trembling. Moreover, the army of skeletons was packed to the brim. The two thieves couldn't even find a crack to sneak out. They had been tricked into a dead end. "You guys follow behind me. Let's kill our way out," Wang Yu responded. His left hand formed a chi wave, and his right hand formed a cloud palm. He instantly killed 4 skeletons in front of him. However, after the 4 skeletons died, more took their place. The 3 of them moved less than half a meter, and at this time, the army of skeletons behind them had already squeezed in. Wang Yu looked back at the army of skeletons behind them. He immediately gritted his teeth and said, "You too use swift movement. Even if we use swift movement, we won't be able to get out." "We aren't warriors," the solitary Jiang Hu said. Wang Yu glanced at the solitary Jiang Hu and said, "I told you to use it, so use it." The solitary Jiang Hu was speechless for a moment. A phantom image appeared around his body, and he activated swift movement without Page Book's objection. Wang Yu pointed at a rock 4 meters away and said, "Fly to that rock and jump out." Before the solitary Jiang Hu could understand what Wang Yu meant, Wang Yu had already grabbed him and thrown him out. As expected, the solitary Jiang Hu landed on that rock. He jumped twice in midair. Because he had activated swift movement, his movement speed was increased by 200%. After jumping twice, the solitary Jiang Hu landed just outside the valley. "What about me?" Page Book asked Wang Yu. "I don't know how to double jump." "Just jump all you want. After saying that, Wang Yu grabbed a page book and threw it out as well. Then, he leaped and stepped on the mountain wall to move a few meters forward. At this time, the page book that he had jumped out of the valley was about to fall into the group of skeletons. Wang Yu's figure flashed and appeared outside the valley. At the same time, he activated his cloud-capturing hand and grabbed a page book and pulled it out. Chapter 442. Yi Yeshu fell to the ground with a sheen of sweat on his forehead. If he had made the slightest mistake, he would have been squashed to death by the skeletons. At the same time, Yi Yeshu's hatred for Wang Yu had lessened. "Thank you," Yi Yeshu said in a low voice. Wang Yu waved his hand indifferently. "Don't just stand there. We have to get to the peak as soon as possible." After saying this, Wang Yu took the lead and ran in the direction of the Sunset Peak. Since the assassin had given them an incorrect notification, it was obvious that he was the final boss. The peak was a dozen minutes away from here. If they did not hurry, the assassin would catch up. However, before Wang Yu could take a few steps, an assassin suddenly appeared behind Wang Yu. He raised his dagger and stabbed at the back of Wang Yu's head. The Lone Ranger and Yi Yeshu were shocked. Before they could warn Wang Yu, the assassin's dagger had already smashed into the back of Wang Yu's head. Bang! Wang Yu's body exploded, and the assassin paused for a moment. The next moment, Wang Yu appeared behind the assassin and stepped on his back. The assassin's body flashed red, and Wang Yu was sent flying as if he had stepped on a rock. At that moment, the assassin turned around and blocked the three's path. He then said coldly, "Go back. Do as I said and put the heart on the altar." The Lone Ranger and Yi Yeshu saw the assassin's appearance. It was the assassin Leon who had given them the quest. Assassin Leon LV50, Dark Gold, Epic HP, 500000 MP, 100000 Skills. Assassin Mastery, Acupuncture Point Strike, Dark Blessing. Talents, Steal, Disguise. Character Introduction. He was once a great assassin. When darkness descended, he assassinated the leaders of the Dark faction many times. He participated in the battle to seal the sixth apostle, but because of this, he became obsessed with the power of darkness. Later on, he was chased by the Assassin Guild for stealing the heart of darkness and has been wandering for decades. "It's you." Unlike Wang Yu's calmness, the two lone wanderers' faces were filled with shock. "You actually lied to me? Aren't you afraid of heaven's wrath?" The solitary Jianghu traveler shouted. The heavenly wrath mentioned by the lone wanderer was not just empty words. Rather, it was a method the system used to deal with intelligent NPCs. Ever since artificial intelligence was developed decades ago, humans had developed a sense of crisis, so no matter what kind of artificial intelligence it was, it could not lie. It was the same in the game. Unless it was a special NPC, such as Liar XXX, who had special privileges, other intelligent NPCs would be formatted by the system if they were found to be lying. Assassin Leon glanced at the lone wanderer and said, "Did I lie?" "He didn't lie," Wang Yu said with a dark face. "He just changed the concept." The solitary martial artist and the other man reacted instantly when they heard that. The assassin said that he was tired of the life of a fugitive, but he did not say that he was going to turn himself in. Obtaining absolute power and not being afraid of being hunted was also one of the ways. Poor Wang Yu thought that this grandson was going to turn over a new leaf, and he was cheated of 500 gold. It was no wonder that Wang Yu's face was so ugly. As for the difficulty of the mission being determined by the assassin, it was not difficult to understand. He was the mission boss, after all. Whether it was easy or hard depended on the assassin. At this point, the lone wanderer looked at the assassin in horror and said, "You're so cunning. Wasn't it so?" Using the truth to deceive people, this was the highest level of lying. This kind of behavior was much scarier than lying. The assassin said expressionlessly, "The designer designed it like this, It has nothing to do with me. The lone wanderer turned around and scolded, "This damned designer! Go back! Put the heart of darkness on the altar, and then stab the dagger into it." After talking nonsense, the assassin returned to his cold expression. After saying this, the assassin looked at Wang Yu and added, "You are as strong as your class. As long as you do as I say, I will allow you to become my servant, and you will also obtain great power." It seemed that the assassin really admired Wang Yu. The lone wanderer hesitated when he heard the assassin's words. After all, the assassin was a boss with the title of Epic. In the system's boss level settings, after Dark Gold was God. Epic and Legendary weren't the boss's levels, they were similar to the titles of Elite. When a boss's prestige or strength reached a certain level, it would have a title. Bosses with titles were very strong. For example, an elite boss of the same level would be much stronger than a normal boss. As for epic bosses, they were the elites of the elite. These bosses generally had a lot of trump cards. Even a bronze epic boss could easily defeat a silver elite boss. It went without saying how strong the assassin, Leon, was. For a boss like this, it was impossible to defeat it without a team of elite players of the same level, let alone 3 people. And there was such a huge difference in their levels? Nyogu, if we really can't do it, let's just give it to him. Even if we give it to him, won't there be a reward? The lone wanderer tried to persuade Wang Yu. Although there was a high chance of getting a reward easily, no one was willing to take the risk of death. Wang Yu shook his head and said, "No, if we give it to him, we'll be finished. Don't forget that this guy betrayed his faction. Helping him with this quest is equivalent to helping a tyrant." Just by releasing the Heart of Darkness, the 3 of them had to bear the pressure of having their honor points plummet by 1,000. If the Light faction had accepted this quest, their honor points would have plummeted. Wang Yu's neutral faction honor points would have plummeted as well. Most of Wang Yu's friends were in Yuhuiqing. He couldn't possibly leave his hometown because of this. It was too unrealistic. Who cares about the faction when there's a reward? This is a game. The lone wanderer said with disdain. The lone wanderer was a lone wanderer. To him, it didn't matter which faction he was in. It was just a change of location to play the game. Therefore, in his eyes, Wang Yu's words were a pedantic and moronic behavior. Reward? Wang Yu said, "A copper coin and some experience is considered a reward. Can you believe him?" The lone wanderer was at a loss again. If it was in the past, the lone wanderer definitely wouldn't believe that an NPC would do something like this. However, the assassin in front of him had a past record. How could he believe him? With the shamelessness of a game designer, it wasn't impossible for him to give some experience. Would he be chased like the assassin just because of some experience? That wasn't worth it. The assassin himself was being chased like a dog. The lone wanderer didn't dare to hope that the assassin would protect him. As far as the integrity of a game NPC was concerned, it would be lucky if the assassin didn't stab him in the back and use him as a shield. "What do we do now?" the lone wanderer asked. Wang Yu said, "Kill him." Chapter 443. Kill it. The solo player was shocked. "Stop fooling around, big brother. Do you know how strong this boss is?" An epic boss had appeared once on the forum. It was discovered by the players of the top guild in China, 9 States Empire, a week ago. At that time, it was only a level 40 gold boss. 9 States Empire sent out a team of 20 elite players, and more than half of them died before they managed to kill it. Now, they were facing a level 50 dark gold epic boss. Compared to the one killed by 9 States Empire, it was higher in terms of rank and name. Now, with just 3 people, Wang Yu dared to say that he could kill it. This guy was overestimating himself. So what if he was a casual player? It was still in the early stages. How could he be stronger than the elite team of a big guild like 9 States Empire? Wang Yu nodded with certainty. "I know. I fought with him just now, and I feel like I can kill him. Feel? Big brother, you can feel that too? The solo player was speechless. Wang Yu laughed. You don't understand. Wang Yu had never judged the strength of a boss by its rank or level, but by its speed and reaction. If the opponent's reaction and speed were within his range, Wang Yu was confident that he could kill it. Although the assassin was an epic boss with agility, Wang Yu had hit the assassin twice in one round. It was clear that the assassin's reaction was not strong. The strength of the system NPCs was not something that players could freely add points to. It was a very balanced type. Bosses with low reaction and low agility were not very high. That was why Wang Yu was sure that this boss could be killed. The solo player wanted to say something to persuade Wang Yu, but as the party leader, Wang Yu had already made the choice for him. I'm sorry, we are not interested in your power, Wang Yu said to the assassin. Hee, is that so? It seems that you know nothing about real power. As he spoke, the assassin's expression changed. He pulled out a dagger and stabbed at Wang Yu's chest. Wang Yu smiled and slowly reached out with her left hand. Coincidentally, before the dagger could stab into her body, she caught the wrist of the assassin that was holding the dagger. At the same time, Wang Yu turned around and moved to the side of the assassin. She tripped him with her feet and pressed her right palm against the assassin's shoulder. With a push, the assassin fell to the ground. -142-79 two weak numbers floated above the assassin's head. Holy shit! When the lone martial artist saw this scene, his eyeballs almost popped out. Wang Yu's opponent was a level 50 epic boss. If it were a solo player, they would be able to brag for the rest of their lives if they could solo a boss 15 levels higher than them for 3 rounds. Who could have imagined that Wang Yu would be so powerful? He had sent the boss tumbling with a single move. Moreover, Wang Yu's attacks were calm and unhurried, giving off a sense of security. In the eyes of an outsider like the lone wanderer, this kind of grandmaster's demeanor was compared to that of an assassin on the street. This was the rhythm of complete abuse. Yeshu also exclaimed, "What a great move! Brother Nyo, are you from the Qin family of the 4 great clans?" "No," Wang Yu replied. Her expression changed slightly, and her gaze once again landed on the assassin. She was secretly shocked. Only 200 HP? As expected of an epic boss. Logically speaking, the assassin's defense was very weak. With Wang Yu's attack, even if it was just a throw, 2 hits should have dealt over 1,000 damage. 200 HP was completely out of Wang Yu's expectations. This boss might not be as easy to defeat as he had imagined. As they spoke, the assassin had already recovered. The assassin was an NPC. He was embarrassed to be knocked down by a level 35 player. His body blurred and disappeared into thin air. He went into stealth. Wang Yu's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly said to the lone martial artist and one page book in the party channel, "Be careful. Lean against the mountain wall and pay attention to block. Don't get killed." At this moment, what Wang Yu feared the most was that the 2 of them would be killed. The lone martial artist and one page book were the 2 key players in this quest. No matter who died, the quest would fail. The assassin was an intelligent NPC, so he definitely understood this. As an assassin-type boss, the assassin's attack from the back and backstab skills were both enhanced. Could definitely kill the 2 of them in one shot. Of course, a boss of this level would be able to kill 2 thieves in one shot. However, the assassin's defense was so high that its attack power wasn't that terrifying. As long as they could block it, their chances of survival would be higher. When the lone martial artist and one page book heard Wang Yu's words, they hurriedly stuck to the mountain wall and looked around vigilantly. They grabbed their daggers and held them in front of them. At this moment, Wang Yu suddenly felt a chill run down his back. The assassin had crawled out from behind Wang Yu and was about to stab Wang Yu's lower back with his dagger. Wang Yu quickly dodged the assassin's attack and reached out with both hands to grab the assassin's arm. Wang Yu's left hand grabbed the assassin's wrist, and his right hand grabbed the assassin's elbow. With a push and pull, the assassin was knocked to the ground again. Then, Wang Yu knelt down and pressed down on the assassin's crotch. If this was in the real world, Wang Yu's opponent would definitely be impressed by this move. But in the game, this kind of attack would only make the boss angrier. The assassin's body flashed red again, and Wang Yu was sent flying again. At the same time, the assassin took out 2 potion bottles and threw them at Wang Yu's landing spot. Seeing this, Wang Yu hurriedly changed his weapon into a staff and stabbed it into the ground. He flew back a distance and dodged the assassin's potion bottles. However, at this time, the assassin had already activated swift movement and was in front of Wang Yu. The assassin's dagger stabbed into Wang Yu's body. 954, a bright red number appeared above Wang Yu's head. His attack power is so high. After being hit by the assassin, Wang Yu was shocked. Wang Yu wore a full set of top-tier equipment, and his defense was in no way inferior to a shield warrior's. In addition, at the critical moment just now, Wang Yu had used block, which reduced the damage by 60%. Even so, he had still lost nearly 1,000 HP. It must be known that the level 35 Wang Yu only had 3,000 HP with the bonus of his equipment. If not for block and the critical hit, even if Wang Yu had the protection of immovable mountain, he would have only taken one more hit. After seeing the boss's attack, Wang Yu suddenly panicked. Strong defense, amazing attack. This boss had almost no weaknesses except for its slow reaction speed. This guy had 500,000 HP. If a person wanted to solo it, the damage output would definitely not be enough. Chapter 444. Can we do it? The Lone Ranger asked in surprise. Even Yi Yeshu, who was much stronger than him, couldn't imagine it. After all, this was a level 50 epic boss. A Grandmaster of Combat and 2 assassins couldn't form an offensive and defensive formation. If they blindly interfered, they wouldn't be able to do anything. If they were killed by the boss, it would be a miracle. Wang Yu said, "Yes, I can hold him back, but my attacks can't keep up. You guys just deal as much damage as you can." It wasn't the first time that Wang Yu had encountered a situation where he couldn't deal damage. After all, the boss's attributes were much stronger than Wang Yu's. No matter how good Wang Yu's skills were, when faced with a boss whose attributes were higher than his, all he could do was slowly grind it to death. Leon the assassin, in particular, had thick skin. Compared to a warrior boss, he was even more helpless. Wang Yu was at his wits' end. 3 people were always faster than 1. The lone traveler said worriedly, "You must hold him back, no problem." As he spoke, the assassin caught up to Wang Yu again. He raised his dagger and stabbed at Wang Yu's throat. The back of the waist, neck, heart, and head were all prime targets for assassins. The assassin class was all about killing in one hit. It had always been this simple and brutal. At this time, Wang Yu's afterimage punch was off cooldown. He used his afterimage to block the assassin's attack. Then, Wang Yu circled behind the assassin, switched his weapon to a dagger, and stabbed at the assassin's back. As the saying goes, an inch longer is an inch stronger. Correspondingly, the longer the weapon, the more its attack speed was limited. Against a boss that was far more agile than him, Wang Yu didn't dare to use a long weapon. If he used gloves, Wang Yu wasn't confident enough to fight the boss barehanded. The best way to deal with this was to fight daggers with daggers. 110-77 The hitman assassin was first hit by the afterimage, then stabbed in the vitals, losing nearly 200 HP. The enraged hitman assassin did not even turn his head as he stabbed backwards with his dagger. Wang Yu blocked the assassin's dagger with a backhand. At the same time, he used the momentum of the assassin's dagger to tilt his body to the side and flash to the assassin's side. Then, Wang Yu turned from the assassin's side to the assassin's front, and with a backhand thrust, he stabbed the assassin's chest. -35 Another weak damage popped up. Wang Yu's heart sank to the bottom. Motherf *Ker, stabbing the heart only caused such a small amount of damage. This assassin was really hard to deal with. Before Wang Yu could put away his dagger and retreat, the assassin's dagger came down again. Instead of retreating, Wang Yu moved forward. His dagger lightly flicked up and caught the assassin's wrist. Hitman's attack was halted by Wang Yu's attack. Wang Yu took the opportunity to wrap his hand around Hitman's wrist, using the dagger in his hand to block Hitman's attack. The assassin was slightly taken aback. With a flip of his free left hand, he pulled out another dagger to stab Wang Yu. Wang Yu lowered his head, grabbed the assassin's arm with both hands, and pressed down. The assassin was immediately pressed down, and his right hand stabbed empty air. Wang Yu used his right hand to block Hitman's right hand, and with his left hand, he pulled out another dagger. Just like before, he once again blocked Hitman's left hand. At this time, Hitman's arms were crossed, and Wang Yu's dagger was stuck at a very strange angle. The four daggers were stuck together, and it was impossible to break free with brute force. Hitman's wrist couldn't move at all, and he could only move his arm. If Hitman threw away his dagger at this time, he would definitely be able to break free. But in Rebirth, if a boss voluntarily threw away a weapon, it would be considered a dropped item. Even an AI NPC couldn't throw away a dagger under the system's mandatory settings. A pitiful level 50 epic boss was being forcefully held back by a level 35 player. Attack him! At this moment, Wang Yu gave Lone Ranger and One Page Book the command to attack. The two thieves grabbed their daggers and ran over with quickness. Backstab, slit throat, and all sorts of other skills were thrown at Hitman. 22-41-12 A string of damage values floated up above Hitman's head. Hitman flew into a rage. He swung his arm, trying to kill the enemy in front of him. But in the system's settings, if the weapon couldn't hit the target wouldn't take damage. It was just like when Wang Yu used wrestling skills to throw people. The victim would only receive damage from the fall, but not from Wang Yu himself. At this moment, no matter how much strength Hitman used to swing his arm, Wang Yu seemed to be glued to Hitman's arm. He swayed left and right with Hitman's arm, floating up and down, dispersing the Hitman's strength one by one. Damn it, I won't let you go. Hitman was like an elephant that had fallen into a swamp. He had all his strength, but he couldn't use it at all. He was so angry that he cried out. Lone Ranger and One Page Book were also very good at playing. When they saw that Wang Yu was firmly entangled with the boss, and that their attacks weren't doing much damage, they simply gave up on their skills and used their daggers to attack Hitman. Assassins were agility-type classes. Their attack speed wasn't inferior to archers. 11-22. The two of them quickly swung their daggers. 5 minutes later, Hitman's full health bar actually showed a small gap. How much longer can Yo-Go hold on? Seeing this scene, the lone traveler was delighted and asked Wang Yu. If Wang Yu could keep holding Hitman's aggro, then it wouldn't be difficult to kill him. Although Wang Yu was currently being tossed around, his expression was very relaxed. When he heard Lone Ranger's words, he even took the time to reply, "As long as you want, wasn't that right?" If this was in real life, it would take a lot of stamina to keep a person occupied like this. But in the game, there was no such thing as stamina. A player's stamina was basically unlimited. After being tossed around by the boss for so long, Wang Yu didn't feel tired at all. Moreover, even if there was a stamina setting, with Hitman tossing a big guy around, who knew who would die of exhaustion first? "Then you have to hold on," Lone Traveler answered. Then, he and Iyeshu continued to swing their saber again and again. Epic-level bosses were difficult to deal with because they had many trump cards. If Hitman was killed by 3 Smurfs, he would probably be laughed at by his peers. Ha! Just as the lone wanderer was getting into a frenzy, the Hitman assassin bellowed. Red light flashed out from his body as he activated Overlord Body. One-page book and the lone wanderer were sent flying. Wang Yu and Hitman were face to face. He immediately saw the prerequisites of Hitman's skills. He decisively threw away his daggers and retreated to the side. Chapter 445. F***ck me. When the lone wanderer saw that the assassin's HP, which had been reduced with great difficulty, instantly recovered to full, he cursed out loud. At that moment, the assassin was already in front of the lone wolf. He raised his dagger and looked like he was going to stab. The lone traveler turned pale with fright and quickly begged for mercy. "Uncle Leon, I was wrong. I actually admire you a lot." No one knew if the assassin took the lone wanderer's words seriously. He turned the dagger expressionlessly, and the hilt of the dagger touched the lone wanderer's body. The lone wanderer cried out in pain and could no longer move. System notification: you have been hit in your acupuncture point. You can't move for 180 seconds. F***ck me. That works? I'm really a F***king genius. The lone wanderer who had luckily escaped death was stunned. He proudly praised himself for being quick-witted. After the lone wanderer was captured, the assassin patted the lone wanderer's body and took away his weapon. Then, he walked to a book not far away. Yeshu turned to run, but she was only a level 30 thief. How could she outrun a level 50 boss? The assassin caught up with Yeshu in a few steps and blocked her way. The lone Jianghu man shouted, "Sister, if you beg him for mercy, he won't kill you." Yeshu was a respectable person, but she wasn't as thick-skinned as the lone wolf. Even at this moment, Yeshu couldn't lower herself to beg someone she had just stabbed multiple times. Seeing the assassin in front of her, Yeshu made up her mind. She flipped forward and jumped into the assassin's arms. She stabbed the assassin in the heart. Since the boss said that her weak point was the heart, this stab should be able to deal a lot of damage. 12. The weak damage was too weak for Yeshu to look at. As expected, was she tricked again? In Yeshu's despair, the assassin's dagger had already landed. However, the assassin didn't kill Yeshu. He still used the handle of the knife to take Yeshu's weapon. The assassin's mercy reminded the lone wanderer of the professional ethics of assassins who did not kill women and children. What puzzled the lone wanderer was that female players have this privilege. But how does Yeshu sound like a woman other than his voice? Originally, when Solitary Traveler and One-Page Book had seen the assassin suffer at Wang Yu's hands, they had thought that this epic boss did not live up to its name. However, the assassin had suppressed the two of them with just a raise of its hand, allowing the two of them to personally experience just how frightening an epic boss was. It wasn't that the boss was weak, it was just that Wang Yu was too strong. Lone Wanderer also realized that an unspecialized like him relied on money to advance, while an unspecialized like Wang Yu relied on his own super skills. So even between unspecialized characters there was such a big difference. In the blink of an eye, the assassin had already caught up to Wang Yu. The assassin was a level 50 boss, but he was repeatedly suppressed by a level 35 Grandmaster of Combat. It was a humiliation. The assassin's hatred for Wang Yu rose to another level, and his attacks became fiercer. Wang Yu took out 2 more daggers from his bag and countered each move. Although he exchanged blows, he defended more than he attacked. The lone wolf had an idea. "Nyogu, if you beg, he won't kill you. Can you shut up?" Wang Yu was too busy dealing with the assassin to talk back. Yeshu scolded the lone wolf on behalf of Wang Yu. "You saw it too. This boss's defense is so high, and he can recover health instantly. There's no way around it. He might as well beg." Yeshu pointed at Wang Yu and the assassin. "Do you think if Nyogu begs, the assassin will let Nyogu go?" The lone wolf raised his head and looked at the two locked in battle. His face was filled with misery. This assassin might have really hated Wang Yu. When he was fighting the 2 lone wanderers, the assassin had been merciful. However, when it came to Wang Yu, He was merciless. Even the lone wanderer could see that the assassin had made up his mind to kill him. Then what do we do? Nyogu stabbed his heart and didn't do much damage, the lone wolf said. In the time that the two fought, Wang Yu stabbed the assassin's heart 4 or 5 times, but the damage was still very low. This. Yeshu thought for a moment. Do you think his heart is on the right side? Many people's hearts are born on the right side. Oh, that's possible. The solitary wanderer of Jianghu liked to read wuxia novels the most. In one of his favorite wuxia novels called Demigods and Semidevils, the yellow-browed monk's heart was on the right side, which was why he wasn't killed by Murong Bo's King Kong Finger. After hearing Ishu's words, the solitary wanderer of Jianghu's eyes immediately lit up. Nyogu stabbed the right side of his chest. His heart might be on the right side, the lone wolf shouted in the team chat. Seeing the two's messages, Wang Yu was happy. That's right, a person's heart might be on the right side. Why did he have to stab the left side? Thinking of this, Wang Yu turned and cut into the assassin's chest, stabbing the assassin's right side. 22 A weak damage floated up again. Wang Yu was about to pull the dagger back, but the assassin's right arm had already wrapped around Wang Yu. The assassin's left hand raised the dagger and slashed at Wang Yu's neck. 1941 Wang Yu's health dropped to 0. Pup. Immovable mountain activated, and the protective shield bounced the assassin away, saving Wang Yu's life. Wang Yu jumped back a few times, dodging the assassin's attack range. F***CK, this bastard is lying. The lone wolf was furious. He said his weakness was his heart, but he stabbed the assassin in the wrong place twice. It was a complete scam. Plus, how could a boss be so stupid as to tell others his weakness? He must be lying. Wang Yu put some distance between herself and the assassin and said, "That won't happen. Although the NPCs in this game are shameless, they've never lied before." Then could his heart be on his bladder? The lone wolf started talking nonsense again. Yeshu nodded, who knows? If it's a heart malformation, the location is hard to predict. Sis, what do you do in real life? The lone wolf turned to ask Yeshu. Doctor, tell me where you work. Why? The lone wolf said seriously, if I get sick in the future, I won't go there for treatment. Wang Yu ignored the lone wolf's nonsense and asked in confusion, why do you think he didn't kill you, but me? Because she's a woman and I'm handsome, the lone wolf said. No, it's not like that. Wang Yu said, I think it's because your quests can only be completed by the two of you, and mine can be completed by either of you. That's why he's not afraid of killing me. What do you mean? Yeshu asked curiously. Chapter 446. Does it really matter? The Lone Ranger was confused. One was a quest item and the other was a boss's weakness. Even if they both had the word heart, the difference was too big. Why else do you think he didn't kill you? Wang Yu asked. I'm handsome. The Lone Ranger was stubborn. One page book said, I think Nyoji's words make sense. The Lone Ranger was surprised. No way. You also think it matters if it has the word heart ? You're not handsome. Women's logic was just that capricious. The Lone Ranger said helplessly, All right, Nyogu, take out the heart and attack it. See if it works. No. Wang Yu said, This heart is a quest item. It can't be destroyed. It can only be destroyed through a quest. Quest? Yes. Wang Yu said, This white bone altar should be the altar to unseal the heart of darkness, and the altar at the top of the mountain should be the altar to seal it. So, we need to place the heart of darkness on the altar at the top of the mountain and seal it with the dagger. We can't run away now, right? The lone wanderer glanced at Wang Yu, who was being chased by the assassins, and said, The assassin was an agility-based boss. Running was his forte. Even someone as strong as Wang Yu could only block the assassin's attack. The others didn't even need to think about running. Wang Yu dodged the assassin's attacks and said, I'll hold him back. You guys take the Heart of Darkness to the top of the mountain. Right now, the three of them were in a party. The Heart of Darkness could be transferred to the other two. That's fine, the Lone Ranger said, but you have to give me the Heart of Darkness first. After seeing Wang Yu's abilities, the Lone Ranger didn't doubt Wang Yu's ability to hold people back. But right now, Wang Yu was being chased by the assassin. Where would he find the time to trade the Heart of Darkness? Wang Yu said, "Retreat to the outside of the valley once your imprisonment time is up. I'll shake him off and head over there." As he spoke, Wang Yu turned around and raised his dagger to meet the assassin head-on. Just now, Wang Yu had dodged left and right, eluding the assassin for a long time, but the assassin hadn't even been able to touch the corner of Wang Yu's clothes. At this time, the assassin was already furious. Seeing that Wang Yu finally dared to fight with him, without saying a word, he grabbed the hilt of the dagger with both hands and stabbed at Wang Yu, his body leaving afterimages. Assassin's ultimate skill, killing blow. Wang Yu blocked with his dagger. Bang! The killing blow turned Wang Yu into white light. The assassin glanced at the place where Wang Yu disappeared and didn't find the Heart of Darkness. His eyes suddenly became very blank. At this time, the assassin heard a sound behind him and suddenly turned around. He saw Wang Yu activate Collapsing Fist and rush toward the entrance of the valley. Collapsing Fist landed on the ground and followed by Flash. In an instant, Wang Yu had flashed 10 meters away, increasing the distance between the two. So that was an afterimage. Collapsing Fist and Afterimage Blast were two skills. Players could also choose not to use Blast. The light from the afterimage was very similar to the light from a player's death. When the assassin caught up to Wang Yu had already run to the entrance of the valley and handed the Heart of Darkness to the Lone Ranger. The Lone Ranger received the Heart of Darkness and ran up the mountain with Yeshu. "Damn it! Do you want to escape?" The assassin was furious. He immediately roared and rushed toward the Lone Ranger at an extremely fast speed. Wang Yu took out a green medicine bottle from his bag and drank it. His speed increased by 3 times and he ran to the assassin's side. The dagger in his hand cut into a long stick and blocked under the assassin's feet. He then lifted it up. The assassin's aggro had already been transferred to the Lone Ranger. He didn't notice Wang Yu's small movements. He was caught off guard and tripped by Wang Yu. "Despicable bastard! I'll kill you first and then take care of those 2 ants." Wang Yu humiliated the assassin over and over again, and the assassin's anger finally reached its peak. The assassin's character setting was very calm and steady. The designer probably didn't expect him to be driven crazy by Wang Yu's insult. After the explosion, the assassin gave up on the Lone Ranger. His body flashed red and he turned to stab at Wang Yu. Wang Yu didn't panic. He crossed the 2 daggers in his hands and blocked the assassin's dagger. He then pushed the assassin to the side. The assassin seemed to have lost his direction and stabbed at the ground beside him. Wang Yu, who had blocked the assassin's attack, secretly wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. The assassin's strength when he was in a state of rage was shocking. Fortunately, Wang Yu had taken a stimulant and had 3 times his stats. Otherwise, with Wang Yu's current stats, it would have been extremely difficult for him to block the attack. It wasn't a joke to say that he could defeat 10 people with brute force. With 3 times his stats, even Wang Yu felt that the assassin was so difficult to deal with. It was clear that the strength of an epic-level boss was definitely not a lie. At the same time, Wang Yu learned a lesson. It wasn't advisable to judge an epic-level boss based on the first 2 rounds. F***ck, Nyogo is so strong. The Lone Ranger not far away looked back as he ran. When he saw this scene, he couldn't help but exclaim. Wang Yu said hurriedly, "Hurry up, don't look back. I can only last for a minute at most." He still had 2 bottles of stimulant left. If he used all of them, it would only take him 1 minute and 40 seconds. There was no time to waste. "Got it." The Lone Ranger heard this and continued to run forward. Wang Yu, who had 3 times the normal speed, was much more skillful in executing his move. Furthermore, the strength of the assassin's berserk state had increased a lot, but there was not much of a change in his speed. As long as Wang Yu did not fight head-on, he should be able to handle it. Of course, the reason why epic-level bosses were so strong was because their stats and skills were only a small part of it. The scariest thing was that epic-level bosses were all intelligent NPCs. The artificial intelligence in the game was quite terrifying. Not only would epic-level bosses determine aggro based on the battlefield, but they would also use all kinds of tactics. The most annoying thing was that these intelligent NPCs would also improve their fighting skills as they fought. After the Hitman assassin's consecutive attacks were deflected by Wang Yu's borrowed force, the Hitman assassin finally reacted. As every skill had 2 gaps before and after the skill was frozen, for an expert like Wang Yu who was in freestyle mode, these 2 gaps were the biggest flaw. After understanding this point, the Hitman's combat techniques began to improve. He began to use his skills as little as possible. After exchanging a few more blows, he decided to give up on his skills. Instead, he picked up his sword and started attacking Wang Yu like a torrential storm. As the saying went, a random punch could kill an experienced master. Even if the agility-type boss didn't attack with any technique, it was still very fast. At first, Wang Yu could rely on his 3 times stats to block the assassin's attacks, but the duration of the stimulant was getting shorter and shorter. At this rate, it was only a matter of time before Wang Yu was stabbed to death. Chapter 447. The journey from the foot of the mountain to the top was at least 20 minutes, and there were many monsters blocking the way. At this time, Wang Yu's stimulant effect had less than 20 seconds left. Seeing that the stimulant's duration was getting shorter and shorter, Wang Yu's situation became more and more dangerous. The hitman looked at the slippery guy in front of him being subdued, and his eyes flashed with excitement. Hey! At this moment, the dagger in Wang Yu's hand suddenly stabbed at the hitman. The hitman did not even look. He raised his wrist and blocked Wang Yu. The hitman's strength was far greater than Wang Yu's. At this time, Wang Yu suddenly felt a huge force rush through the dagger. No matter how smart you are, you're still just a piece of data. Wang Yu laughed. Using the hitman's strength, he flipped backwards, then turned around and ran into the valley. There were still 10 seconds left before the stimulant's 3 times effect wore off. Wang Yu's speed was still above the hitman's. In the blink of an eye, Wang Yu ran in front of the skeleton army in the boneyard. Then, he jumped, stepped on the skull of the skeleton, and ran into the depths of the boneyard. If an NPC could swear, the hitman would probably have started swearing on the spot. The girl thought that Wang Yu would be killed after a few more struggles. Who knew that this guy would be so despicable, actually burrowing into the crowd of monsters? Although the hitman was an agility-based boss, he was only fast. This kind of light body technique that could only be found in martial arts games would never be designed into a Western fantasy game. Even the Grandmaster of Combat class did not have the ability to fly over eaves and walls, let alone the hitman. The skeleton army in the boneyard filled the valley to the brim. No matter how good the hitman was, it would take him some time to break through and catch up. Although there were many skeleton soldiers, they were crowded together. The ones that could really attack Wang Yu were only a dozen or so. Including the long-range magic attacks, there were no more than 20 at most. Skeletons' magic bullets and attack frequency were much slower than players. Wang Yu could dodge the attacks of 20 players easily, not to mention these trash skeletons. For Wang Yu, being attacked by 20 low-level skeleton soldiers was far less dangerous than facing off against an assassin. Wang Yu stepped on the skulls and leaped in front. Behind him, the hitman swung his dagger and killed the skulls one by one, breaking through the group of monsters. The assassin was killed quickly, but the skeletons respawned quickly as well. By the time Wang Yu jumped onto the white bone altar, the assassin had not even covered a tenth of the distance. The white bone altar was a forbidden area for skeletons. There was not a single skeleton within 5 meters of it. Wang Yu sat cross-legged on the altar and glanced at the hitman who was sweating profusely. She opened the team channel leisurely and said, "Hello, you two. F***ck Nyogo, did you already kill the hitman?" Seeing Wang Yu's leisurely tone, the lone wanderer was full of admiration for Wang Yu. What was an expert? An expert was a person who could solo an epic boss 15 levels higher than him, and still talk and laugh with his party members. No, that guy was too strong, I shook him off. Let's rest for a bit. Where are you guys now? Wang Yu asked honestly. I just reached the place where I met you. It'll take us around 10 minutes to reach the top. You're not in a hurry, are you? The lone wanderer asked. In the eyes of the lone wanderer, shaking off a boss with high movement speed like the hitman was clearly not an easy task. He thought that Wang Yu would not be able to hold on for much longer. Wang Yu said, "No hurry, no hurry. Just take it slow." Wang Yu's carefree attitude once again shocked the two of them. Wang Yu sat on the altar, chatting with the two as he rested to recover his health. After who knew how long, the hitman finally arrived in front of the altar. "You're here." When Wang Yu saw the hitman chasing after him, he stood up and greeted the hitman. Then, he ran a few steps, circled around the hitman, and jumped. He stepped on the mountain wall and ran out of the valley once more. When the hitman saw this, his body twitched, and he almost dropped the dagger in his hand. After going crazy, the hitman once again broke through the group of monsters and chased after him. But at this moment, the lone wanderer and one-page book climbed to the top of Sunset Peak again. The scene of the altar at the top of the mountain had been refreshed. After dealing with the monsters on the top of the mountain, the two of them walked to the altar. One page opened the altar, revealing the hexagram array inside. The lone traveler placed the heart of darkness on the altar, took out the sealing dagger, and stabbed it into the altar. At the same time, at the bottom of the valley, the thousands of skeletons disappeared the moment the heart of darkness was sealed. The hitman, Leon, screamed and dropped a few items, turning into a cloud of black fog. System announcement. Players Iron Ox, Lone Wanderer, and one-page book have sealed the heart of darkness of the sixth apostle and successfully prevented the sixth apostle from reviving. Their glorious deeds will be recorded in history. System announcement. The Level 30 Faction Dungeon, Apostle's Seal, has been opened. Location: Yuhuiqing Sunset Peak. Iron Ox, Lone Wanderer, and one-page book will receive 1% of the profit. We hope that all players will continue to work hard and explore the game. The faction dungeon was a dungeon that required a fee to enter. Currently, the Light faction only had one level 30 dungeon, so 1% of the profits was quite considerable. Apart from this, the three also received various reward notifications. You have successfully prevented the sixth apostle from reviving, reputation plus 1,000. You have killed the hitman, Leon, Assassin's Guild reputation plus 200. Currently in respect. You have sealed the Heart of Darkness, Light faction reputation plus 200. Currently in disgust. Your heroic deeds will be sung by others. Neutral faction reputation plus 100. Currently in respect. You have completed the hidden mission, the altar at the peak of the mountain. Mission rank S reward. Assassin's Class Change Token. The series of rewards took the three a long time just to read through the record. Although the reputation and honor rewards didn't seem to be of much use at the moment, they would be very useful in the future. Especially the S-rank reward, it made Lone Wanderer very excited. Damn, it's actually a clone Assassin's Class Change scroll. I've struck gold this time. Lone Wanderer excitedly shared his mission rewards in the party channel. Clone Assassin's Class Change Scroll. Use this scroll to find Demon Thief Leylon in Chaos City and complete the Clone Assassin's Class Change quest. According to the Scrolls class introduction, the three learned that the clone assassin's talent skill allowed them to create 2 clones with 50% of their attributes to assist in battle. It was the most suitable class for casual players. I have one too. Not to be outdone, Pagebook showed off his reward. Elemental Assassin's class change scroll. Use this scroll to find Demon Thief Carry in the Land of Rest and complete the Elemental Assassin's class change quest. Elemental Assassins could learn low-level and mid-level magic to assist in battle. It was equivalent to dual training with magic. It was also a decent class. What about you, Nyogo? Take it out and see if it's a Grandmaster of Combat subclass, Lone Wanderer asked curiously. Chapter 448. Assassin Class Change Token. Search for the King of Assassins, Reynold, in the City of Sinners. Unlock the hidden hero class, Assassin. Hero class. Seeing what Wang Yu had sent out, Yi Yeshu and Lone Ranger cried out involuntarily. It was the only hidden class. Subclasses were already 1 in a million, and hero classes were even more overpowered. There were a total of 7 heroes and 7 apostles in the 2 factions of the game, making a total of 14 hidden classes. After all, there were more than 100 million players in the game, and this number was still growing. The rarity of hero classes could be seen from this. Lone Ranger and Yi Yeshu were originally proud that they had received the subclass mission, but when they saw the class change token in Wang Yu's hand, their sense of accomplishment vanished like smoke in thin air. Of course, Lone Ranger and Yi Yeshu didn't think it was unfair. After all, this mission was led by Wang Yu from start to finish. The most important item, the Heart of Darkness, was in Wang Yu's hands. Wang Yu was also the one who had stalled the assassin and bought time for the 2 of them. All the 2 of them could do was climb up the mountain and seal the heart into the altar. If it wasn't for Wang Yu, the 2 of them might have long since placed the Heart of Darkness into the White Bone altar and released the 6th apostle. Now that they thought about it, the 2 of them still felt a lingering fear, which was why the mission's reward for the branch profession was already extremely unexpected for the 2 of them. Moreover, Wang Yu had rejected the temptation of the Assassin Apostle class, so it was only right that he received the class change token. Wang Yu glanced at the token in his hand and casually threw it into his bag. He then said something that made Lone Ranger and Yi Yeshu vomit blood. This stupid thing is useless. It was rare for others to see a hidden profession, but Wang Yu had already seen 4 of them with this token. Chuanjun alone had as many as 3 guilds, so Wang Yu wasn't as excited as Lone Ranger and Yi Yeshu. Lone Ranger said excitedly, F***CK. Nyoshin, if you don't plan on using it yourself, let me use it. Wang Yu was puzzled. I'm a Grandmaster of Combat, how can I use it? This is a class change token, not a class change scroll. A class change token can be used to change classes. I have a friend in real life in the Holy City. He used to be a Grandmaster of Combat, but because he donated a lot of money to the Vatican, he got himself a Templar token and changed his class to a Knight Hero, the Lone Wolf explained. In the settings of Rebirth, tokens were extremely rare, and they had special uses. For example, scrolls and similar items could only be used to accept quests, but tokens could be used to change one's class. Otherwise, if the class change token they had worked so hard to obtain couldn't be used, players would start killing people. Although a lone wanderer's level was not high, they liked to wander around in the wild. They had seen many strange things, so they knew a lot of the system's annoying settings. I see. Wang Yu thought for a moment and asked, but I'm already a hero now. Can I have another hero class? The lone traveler shook his head and said, I can't. Wang Yu was not surprised and said, I don't think it's possible either. So you should just give me this token. I can pay for it. The lone traveler was thinking about the token again. Don't you already have a branch profession? The lone traveler said, my branch profession is also a thief. A hero class can use all the skills of the main profession and branch professions of the same profession. Although branch professions and hero professions were both hidden professions, there was a fundamental difference between the two. Branch professions referred to those professions that were not official in the system. Compared to the common professions, these professions had their own characteristics, but they also had their drawback. They could not learn ultimate skills. For example, Ming-Du was a hybrid fire and thunder mage, so he could not learn ultimate skills such as 1,000 miles of ice, mighty thunder, and meteor fire. However, hybrid spells were flexible and powerful. Compared to ultimate skills, they were not powerful, but they were very flexible. Each had their own advantages. Hero professions were different. It was a powerful profession that covered all the professions of the same profession. Apart from being able to learn all the skills of the two main professions, all the skills of the profession could be used. If the lone traveler became an assassin, he could learn the skills of the clone assassin and even the skills of the demon thief. I see. Wang Yu nodded and said, "Not bad. I was going to sell it casually, but now that you mention it, I don't want to sell it anymore." Ah! The lone traveler was dumbfounded. He slapped himself in the face. Was there anything more stupid than bragging about the seller's goods? In fact, it was not that Wang Yu did not want to sell it. It was just that he had to show such a good item to his brother first. Besides, Yeshu and the lone traveler were both thieves. Although Wang Yu could not see Yeshu's expression, he was sure that the girl wanted the token. Especially since the lone traveler wanted to mark the price clearly. Yeshu was a shy girl and would not do such a thing. However, marking the price clearly had nothing to do with her face. The lone traveler was rich, and Yeshu was not a poor person either. Wang Yu could tell from Yeshu's movements that this girl was not only a martial artist, but also learned the tiger and crane dual fist of the southern sect. The tiger and crane dual fist was not as famous as Tai Chi or Eight Extremities fist, and it was not as populous as the Chun, Li, Wang, and Yang families. However, the poor were scholars and the rich were martial artists. Moreover, the South was a rich place. This girl's background was definitely not simple. At least, she would not lose in a competition of wealth. If the two of them really fought, Wang Yu would be stuck in the middle, and it would be very awkward. If the price was not marked clearly, it would be even more impossible for Wang Yu to give it to her for free. He was a professional gamer, and he relied on this to make a living. After putting away the token, Wang Yu ignored the lone traveler's cries and threw out 3 skill books. They were the items dropped by assassins after they died. Flash Kill, rare skill, allows the user to approach and assassinate the target with extreme speed. Class requirement, Thief. Item introduction, Assassin Leon's famous skill. Steal, rare skill, has a certain chance to steal items from the target's bag. Class requirement, Thief. Item introduction, turning someone else's item into your own. Just thinking about it makes you happy. Acupuncture point strike, special skill, hits the target's acupuncture point and immobilizes them. Class requirement, General. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.